Game 59 with a focus on the Eagles. Now, here are your hosts, Sean Barnard and Ryan Coyle.
Yes, sir. It is almost that time, Ryan Coyle. It has been a long wait for the Super Bowl, but we're almost there. We are back for night 2 of Finish the Story right here on Fox Sports The Gambler. Got plenty in store for each and every one of you guys out there. Appreciate you coming and hanging with us today. We got Mark Henry Jr. Joining us at 6:30. Anthony DiBona of Philly Sports Network popping on at 7. One of the best Eagles follows in the game. Very excited to dive into things and plenty to get into. So, Ryan, how are we feeling now that we're starting to get closer? It has been a long while. It feels like I'm waiting on the edge of my seat for such a long time. Where's the energy out in your end right now?
Yeah, awesome. I don't think things could be much better as of this moment. Throughout last week, through the tail end, I was starting to get like super confident, maybe a little over my skis. I think this week I've kind of came back down to earth a little bit and talking myself into a closer game. But I'm excited. I think we've talked about it a ton here on the station all week, but the Eagles have a flat out better roster from top to bottom. But you always got to throw in the butt at the end. The other team's got 15 on the other side, so nothing's going to be easy. But we'll get into all of it. Excited to hit some props, kind of go into our winners, and even talk a little Sixers. Some big news out there with the boys today.
That's right, and we are going to start there for a little bit. So as I mentioned, Mark Henry Jr. popping on at 6:30, Anthony DiBona at 7. A jam-packed show, getting into everything and do want to make sure we hit the Super Bowl at a really high rate. But it is also the NBA trade deadline, and as a basketball guy first, got to be full force and focused on that. So talked a little bit about the Caleb Martin trade with Sean Brace in the last hour of the Daily Ticket there. Have not gotten your thoughts just yet, though, Ryan. So what kind of is your reaction to that? I know we've done plenty talking about the Sixers. Shout out to our work on Sixers Digest as well as right here on the station as well. So where's your mindset now that this deal is done?
Yeah, so my initial thought was, and I put out a video last night on Sixers Digest, basically saying from these past few weeks where the Sixers kind of were in limbo mode, where they were on that tailspin, where 6-7 losses in a row, Nick Nurse comes out and lights the team up in the locker room. Team responds with a 4-game winning streak, and then 2 tough losses against 2 NBA Finals contenders in the Denver Nuggets, in the Boston Celtics. But I think the Sixers did enough over these past few weeks to basically go out of that limbo mode saying, all right, let's stay pat. Let's try and make a run at this thing. Joel is now coming back tonight against the Dallas Mavericks. I think they probably knew that behind the scenes. Paul George hopefully returns from his horrific pinky injury as well this week. But I think the Sixers did enough the past 2 weeks where they could reevaluate this trade deadline and be like, all right, let's just stay pat or make a couple small moves that could help us. And the big thing with the Caleb Martin trade, he obviously had an attractive contract, I think, to the Mavericks, only getting paid as much as $9 million a year over the next few years. So that was an attractive contract to take on. The Sixers get an expiring contract with Quentin Grimes, but he's a restricted free agent, so the Sixers will have the ability to match any deal if he does have a good kind of second half here. And you get a second-round pick as well and another asset. So I don't really think it's much of a upgrade, a downgrade, nonetheless, but you're getting younger, and I think that is something that the Sixers team has started to buy into the past couple of weeks. Justin Edwards, Ricky Council, DiBona, obviously Tyrese Maxey, Jerry McCain. This is a team that needs to get younger, and they did that today. So I'm not doing cartwheels and backflips for this trade, but I'm not hating on it either. I think it's kind of for this team right now, you kind of stay where you were, and that's as a team that's fighting for a playing spot and get into the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you, and I will say I'm a Caleb Martin guy. So my gut reaction, my initial reaction here, I hated the trade. That I did want Caleb Martin a part of this playoff run, or a part, at least a chance to go to battle in the playoffs with this team. We've seen this guy have higher highs on the playoff stage than really just about anyone on this Sixers team. You can make a little bit of a case for Tyrese Maxey for his performance in that Knicks series, but I mean the Joel performances speak for themselves. There's been some flashes for Paul George. I just wanted a guy like Caleb in our back pocket when we got to that moment. But with that being said, you got to get to that moment. So I understand it. And I think the bigger picture to keep in mind here, it is the financial aspect. You basically cut half the salary. Quentin Grimes making a little bit over $4 million compared to the $9 million for Caleb Martin there. Very curious to hear Mark Henry Jr.'s thoughts on this at 6:30, because he's out here with the take right now that Quentin Grimes is straight up the better basketball player. I can't quite get there at 24 years old. You might be able to talk to me when he hits his prime and he fully gets there. But again, it is the financial thing. And I do think they're really angling to give Gershon Yabusele a contract at the conclusion of the season, get in the ballpark of affording what other teams will offer him. So to me, that's probably the bigger takeaway here, that they did good below that first apron. And it wouldn't shock me if there's at least one more move coming as far as cleaning up this roster.
Yeah, the thing with Grimes is, though, I like the ability to at least have Caleb Martin, because I know it wasn't a great tenure here with the Sixers. Obviously up and down, fought injuries a lot. but you saw like in that Celtics game what he could be. And you just at least knew that you had a reliable, I think, veteran over these next 3 years at an affordable deal. Quentin Grimes could go out and command, a loftier contract this offseason that you would have had to pay Caleb Martin. And does that give you still kind of the flexibility to go out and sign Yabusele as well? There's obviously a lot more dominoes to happen, and we still have, the rest of tonight. Obviously, a trade could happen tomorrow, and then correct me if I'm wrong, Thursday up till 4 o'clock,
3 o'clock,
3 o'clock. Yeah. Yep. So a few moves could potentially still be made. It sounds like the Sixers with Oubre, Yabusele still have players in the mix there. Paul George's name has still been floated around too. So some more dominoes to fall. I'd be surprised if that was the last player coming in or going out for the Sixers team. And keep in mind, too, they still have that open roster spot as well that they could look to maybe even trade that 2025 second and bring somebody else in.
Yeah, and I do think that there's probably a little asterisk next to that with Justin Edwards' name on it. And I think this trade is probably a little testament to their belief in him. But nonetheless, on the other side of this deal was the Dallas Mavericks, who have been plenty busy. Now, we have not got a chance to dig in on this Luka Doncic conversation. I have a lot on my mind about it. At the time, I labeled it one of the stupidest trades in NBA history. Now that I've processed it a little more, I think I was absolutely right about that. I stand by every word of that and cannot believe this PR spin, all that's being going on behind the scenes. I love the Ryan Russillo quote flying around right now that he said, Luka Doncic could be smoking a cigarette while he's dribbling the ball up the court, and I still would be shoving that max contract in front of his face. That's basically how I feel, that I have a pretty high tolerance for guys that if you hold up your end of the bargain on the court, I don't really care what you do off it. We've seen guys, and I get like, Luka, you can point to both the basketball and non-basketball reasons to be upset with him. The defense, there are issues at time. I personally am kind of sympathetic to that because I can live with a guy who still has it in the tank. You can argue that it's more frustrating that he doesn't compete on that end, but to compare him to Nikola Jokic right now, there's no world in which Nikola Jokic all of a sudden can turn into a lockdown defender. His physical skills limit him in that area. That is not the case with Luka Doncic. Now, granted, is he disinterested on that side of the floor at times? For sure. We see it. Does he worry about complaining about officials rather than playing defense? Yes, that happens. But there's also stretches where this guy does take the challenge personally. And as far as the fitness stuff, the injury concerns, I mean, this dude logged the most minutes in the entire NBA last season. This dude went to the NBA Finals last year with him as your star player. So I can't be convinced that this is this win now move to go attack this current time frame to try and win right at this immediate moment when the guy that carried you to the finals last year is no longer on your roster. What is your thought process on this entire trade now that you've kind of digested it a little bit?
My biggest thing is like the fitness thing, and it's very like simple for me in terms of like you said it yourself, where look at what he did last year. You could see that he wore down, but when you're playing the most minutes and you basically put that team on your back alongside Kyrie and obviously some role players in that regard, and you kind of just ran out of gas there at the end of the season, things like that are going to happen over the course of an NBA season. But when you look at Luka, when he came into the league, what was he, 18 years old? Now he's 25. Yeah. I challenge anybody who's out there judging him for his weight or what he looks like now, go look at a picture of yourself when you were 18 compared to 25. I'm not saying it's just with the drinking for him and for other people, but you look different from when you're 18 to when you're 25. You're going to grow up. You're going to put on weight. It happens to everyone. It is just called what I don't even know what it's called.
Life.
Human development. Yeah, life. Like that is going to happen. And he still is going out there and dominating and one of the 3 to 4 to 5 best players, wherever you want to rank him in the league. So I challenge you, if you're going to be out there criticizing him in the condition he's in, you go out there and do what he's been doing and criticize his conditioning, his health, his fitness, everything in between. But that's just how people grow up. They change. They look different. Look at LeBron.
Yeah.
I know LeBron's more of like a sculpted person, but you look at him when he came into the league. He was a skinny, frail, just kind of athlete, and he became a man. That's what Luka's becoming. He's becoming a 25-year-old white man. That's what a lot of people look like at this age.
Yeah, and by the way, not a guy whose game is predicated on his athletic excellence by any means, that he's incredibly skilled. The way that he gets guys on a string, he's so calculated in what he does. He has the size there. This is not a guy who's reliant on his athleticism. And to me, that's a point in favor of not being worried about him in the long run. So I don't know. It still doesn't make much sense to me. And when fully kind of grasping my brain around this, I really took a step back and thought about this, that I've called Nico Harrison out for malpractice as an organization. That's more how I sit on sit on the side of things, that I don't think that there's this conspiracy theory. I think this is a guy who's incompetent at his job and does not understand how to build a basketball team in the proper way. You get Luka Doncic and you figure out the rest. And to his credit, by the way, he's brought in those guys, the Daniel Gaffords, the PJ Washingtons. He has guys that have been made clearly better basketball players because of Luka Doncic. That all changes with this roster. And when really taking a step back and think about this, think about the Mavericks ownership, the new GM, and the way that they're trying to shape this team. It really got me thinking on like sports in general, man. Like, yes, we get lost in all these narratives, the gambling aspect, the props, all these kind of things. When you think about what sports really is, it is about that fandom to your team and that belief, that loyalty, going through the wars with these guys. And that's who Luka Doncic is to this overall team. So as far as like the Mavericks overall, if this results in a championship, I still don't think that's enough from the standpoint of what it means to Dallas. You should be so mad about what this is to the franchise here. Shout out to Luke working behind the scenes, changing up some graphics for us here. But as far as what Luka Doncic does mean to actually this franchise, it is about more than just winning on the court. Like, I think about what Dirk Nowitzki was to that organization, that he had such a long tenure, obviously won a championship, was incredibly successful. And then there was the keys of this organization handed right to Luka Doncic. And he was driving the ship just fine, man. It was going exactly as planned. You can't ask for much more. At 25 years old, one of the most accomplished resumes in the sport. So I don't know. I can't find any sort of belief in why this was okay. But the reality is life moves on, and he's now a Laker, going to be a damn good one for a long time.
Yeah, that's the next poster child, obviously, out there in LA. And if he had any, self-doubts about his conditioning, his fitness level or whatnot, if this didn't light a fire under your what, then what will? So it could be a kind of look in the mirror moment, and we might even see Luka take his game up to another level, another notch, and become, the face of the league. If this is a transition period now with LeBron, it's going to be interesting to see how or if LeBron takes kind of a backseat to him, at least for the rest of this year. But, every credible NBA analyst out there has said it. Like, this is Luka's team now. LeBron, I think, would acknowledge that. But LeBron is still not at the peak of his game, but he just had a triple-double on Saturday night at 41 years old or wherever he is. So I'm looking forward to watching the Lakers. I definitely say outside of the Sixers, I keep a much closer eye on college basketball than the NBA, but I'm excited to watch this. Two of the more ball-dominant players I remember in my life, two of the more gifted passers and just basketball IQs being on the court at the same time. It's going to be interesting to see. And do they go out and make another move before the deadline? Caleb Martin was a guy that was floated to them, but they're a team that could definitely use some more corner three shooters, corner specialists to be able to just knock down shots. And I think we're going to be betting a lot of Los Angeles Lakers overs for the rest of the season. I could see them playing Showtime basketball 140 to 135 type of wins.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. And we do have a little more breaking news as it pertains to our Philadelphia 76ers. KJ Martin has been ruled out for this game with a trade pending. We do not have the details where he's going or what in exchange for, but KJ Martin will no longer be a member of this Philadelphia 76ers team. Any thoughts, Ryan?
The human trade exception, was that his nickname? Yeah, coming into the year. But I mean, basically he was signed to give them a player a contract to trade. It has been interesting over the past few weeks because it feels like every week he's just been ruled like day to day. So it seems like maybe this was kind of always working in the background, but I'm interested to see the return. What exactly could you get for KJ Martin? I thought he was actually playing pretty well before the injury, before he was forced to miss time, but Yabu has really stepped up and I think taken his game to another level in those extended minutes. So if the Sixers are feeling confident they're going to be able to retain Yabu, and you can kind of move off a guy like KJ, see what you get. I would hope at least in return, if it is a player for a player type thing, maybe just getting like a younger guard in the backcourt to fill some minutes. So we're not trotting out Reggie Jackson and Kyle Lowry as much. And you give maybe a younger player some minutes behind Tyrese Maxey as of now.
Yeah, 100% there. And it's kind of interesting to me because obviously that was sort of the theme, is this was a human trade exception, that you did give him this contract. So you had this flexibility. To me, I think this is, obviously I'm not going to judge anything until we have an idea of what the return is or what kind of deal, but it wasn't, I guess I had sort of wrapped my mind around of maybe we're taking this dance into next year, that he had the team option at the end. Maybe it is worth just keeping on for him for another season and then doing this dance next year. We got a couple comments chiming in. Shout out to Luke saying, imagine being KJ Martin and going into the season just knowing the only reason you're around is to get traded. It is tough, but what I'll say by that is he made himself probably about $4 extra million by putting himself in this situation. And I can say by seeing him in Summer League was making the most of those millions of dollars on the casino floor there. So shout out to him. Nick Hershio chiming in saying Ricky lives another day. So yeah, we'll see what happens and what that overall trade seems to be, but a lot of craziness. Now, we are still here to talk some Super Bowl, and we're going to be bouncing all over the place a little bit as some news breaks, as we get a little bit more for what this trade is and everything there. Talk everything with Mark Henry Jr. No, he wants to touch on a little college basketball as well. But when it comes to the Super Bowl, Ryan, it does feel like there has been an extreme amount of confidence, more than I could have expected with this Philadelphia Eagles team. To paint a little bit of a pessimistic view, if this game is to go wrong, how does it go wrong for the Eagles?
Turnovers, plain and simple. Was talking about this with someone just last night. When you look at the 3 losses the Eagles have this year, they have a turnover in each of those games. When you look at the Super Bowl against the Chiefs in 2022,
a fumble,
1 turnover to the Chiefs, none. When you look at the Chiefs' 2 playoff games thus far, the Texans and the Bills, Texans and Bills didn't turn it over, and they still lost. So you can't give this team any mistakes, any extra possessions. You can't give them anything. You have to play nearly perfect football, and it's crazy to say because the Eagles, I think we've highlighted this many times, top to bottom have such a better roster than the Chiefs. It's crazy to just say that you have to play a perfect game to beat them, but you essentially do. Just look at all their games this year. You take out the Broncos game where they sat everyone. The Bills game, that's the Bills Super Bowl when they have the ability to play the Chiefs at home. But you look at every other Chiefs game, whether it's block field goal, a fumble, we all call it the devil's magic, the luck, but at the end of the day, it's true, and you can't give them anything. You can't give them any extra possessions. And if you do that, you could have another frustrating loss because, as we always say with Jalen, he played arguably his best game of his career.
Yeah,
but he had the biggest mistake in the game. You could say that or Bradbury, obviously, but you just can't give them the football. And if you do, you're not going to be feeling confident.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. And it is brutal that fumble kind of lives in infamy a little bit, that we all remember that because of how excellent Jalen was in the overall standpoint. And I know I had this battle with John Jansen here, but I full 10 toes down stand on the take that I think Jalen Hurts outplayed Patrick Mahomes in that Super Bowl. Your thoughts?
I'll go. This is my big stance on this, and it's been kind of driving me crazy over the past couple of weeks because obviously we know that Super Bowl happened, all those highlights, all that conversation is going to be brought up. I don't think it eats at anybody more than Jalen Hurts to be known or to have known his best game ever in his football career is a loss. That has to eat at him every single time he hears it, because I'm sure it's came up in conversation before, like,
sure,
dude, you outplayed Patrick Mahomes. You should have won that game, blah, blah, blah. He'd be the first one to say, I fumbled the ball. I cost my team the game.
You're right.
There's no way in hell that Jalen Hurts is sitting there content having his best game ever as a loss. All he cares about is winning. And if that really is the message from the team, from Jalen Hurts, that's all he cares about as well. He could go out there once again this week, have 110 yards, 1 touchdown pass. Saquon runs for 250 and 3 touchdowns. I think Jalen Hurts is the happiest guy in the room because truly, if he only cares about winning, he doesn't care if he goes out there and outduels Patrick Mahomes. And if he does do that again, he does lead the Eagles to victory. Good for him. But there's no one sitting there more saying, I don't care that was my best game ever. All I want to do is win the football game.
Yeah, and we got a Mark Stein update saying the Sixers are actively working on a KJ Martin trade. League source confirms potential deal is pending. So still no knowledge of who it was. To keep it on the Eagles topic there, and in agreement that this has to eat at Jalen Hurts as much as possible here, or more than anyone else. We also had the conversation with Sean Brace in the previous show here saying if Jalen Hurts wins the Super Bowl, he's the best quarterback in Eagles franchise history. What do you have to say to that, Ryan?
I would agree. You look at McNabb, obviously played longer. Also, I think for people our age, like that was kind of your beginning of your football fandom. You don't really remember the beginning days, but they made NFC title game after NFC title game from what I was told, but they only made 1 Super Bowl. Jalen's gone to 2.
If he wins
this one, he wins 1. And you look at win percentage, his pairing with Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni is going to go down as probably the greatest coach in Eagles history as well.
Isn't that funny too, man? Isn't that hilarious?
Yep. And it is because of the start, everything that happened. But my own father says it to me all the time. What does he do? He's a cheerleader. He's pom-pom boy on the sideline. And I always say, all right, you go and do what he does. Someone is going to mess it up. I think you get more credit for not messing it up than figuring it out and working wonders at the end of the day. Someone's got to get in the way and screw it up. That's how good this Eagles team is. Nick Sirianni has found a way more times than not to not screw it up. So I give both of them all the credit in the world because at the end of the day, do you care about stats or do you care about going out there and winning the football game? Here in Philadelphia, I think it's plain and simple. Just go out there and win. Make some history and end this three-peat in its tracks.
Yeah, and for the what does Nick Sirianni do question, He wins is the answer to that. That he keeps the ship on, or the train on the track, the ship going, however you want to word it here. That's the guy that does just make sure everything is going according to plan. And I honestly have gained respect for Nick Sirianni as the season has progressed. The stuff like taking responsibility for things that clearly aren't his fault, and sometimes he looks stupid doing it. And even some of these media day quotes coming around, it just all the credit in the way that these guys ride for Sirianni in a way, that's really telling of a coach. And sure, you can point to the X's and O's. There's certainly things, decision-making that he hasn't been flawless with during his Eagles tenure. But when the guys ride for you, the way they seem to for Nick Sirianni, that honestly is a bigger deal to me. And I think deserves just as much credit from a coaching standpoint. So there's been a lot made about this coaching advantage. Andy Reid over Nick Sirianni. I'm not here to go to bat and say Sirianni's a better head coach. But Sam Ashday last night, as we were chopping up on here, was really making the case about how the gap is not nearly as wide as it feels. What's kind of your take on the coaching matchup there?
Yeah, when you look at that, I think the big thing with Nick and the thing that he's great at, and we talked about this before our show for the Ravens game, and it was like a Jason Kelce interview, and basically he said, like, Nick is the greatest coach at in week that I've seen in terms of getting us prepared and ready to go. Come game day, he does still make some questionable decisions. When Andy Reid, and I think I heard you say it, when Andy Reid needs to have it, he's going to draw up the winning play. But I think you have a good kind of combatant in this one with Vic Fangio and being able to match up there. Would I take necessarily Nick Sirianni over Andy Reid? No, but I think I might take the Eagles collection of a coaching staff as a whole over the Chiefs and what they have. Steve Spagnuolo is great, but this is much more even, I think, coaching matchup this time around than it was the first time. So I'm still going to lean to the Chiefs. They've been there, they have the experience, but if Nick Sirianni does what he does, and as you said, just wins, you got to put him up in that conversation as one of the 2 to 3 best coaches in the sport. I mean, the guy has the freaking best winning percentage in NFL history through 4 seasons.
Yeah. So good start to the show here. Quick shout out to other Ryan Coyle in the comments. My fault. We tagged the wrong Ryan Coyle. So hand up our bad on that one, but plenty more to get into. We're going to take a quick break over on this side. We got Mark Henry Jr. joining us on the other side. A lot more to dive into as we find out what this KJ Martin trade is, what the actual terms are, and a lot more Super Bowl to talk. So stick with us. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Back on the other side. Peace.
Bourbon Street has officially turned midnight gray.
I always dreamed about it, but the dream wasn't just getting there. The dream was winning it. So that's what the mindset's at.
All things Big Game 59 right here on The Gambler. Fox Sports Radio, The Gambler. Now, total traffic for Philadelphia.
Which end up on the Schuylkill westbound University Divine, then further west, barely moving from the Boulevard to Belmont, where the right lane's blocked with fire department activity. Eastbound Schuylkill, Jan Conshohocken to Belmont, and Montgomery Drive to South. Divine Expressway westbound busy. West of 95 to the Schuylkill merge. 95 northbound heavy across Girard Point Bridge. And then backed up Allegheny to Bridge Street. Southbound Copman to Bridge. Delays on the Blue Route southbound Broomall to Media Swap. Or Artotella total traffic.
This report is sponsored by Straight Talk Wireless. Don't let data limits hold you back from being the gift master in the family group chat. Switch to Straight Talk Wireless and get real unlimited data on a reliable 5G network. Straight Talk, available at Walmart or straighttalk.com.
Here we go. Sean Brace for DraftKings Sportsbook. Now, this ain't the little itty-bitty, teeny-tiny bowl. This is the Super Bowl 59, and it's time for you to get on in the action on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 59. Now, scoring touchdowns is the key to hoisting the Lombardi Trophy, and you could score big by betting on them at DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet on touchdowns. Are you ready to place your first bet? Well, try betting on something simple like a player to score 6. All you got to do is just go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and make your pick. New DraftKings customers, listen up. You can bet just $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. All you got to do is just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use my promo code BRACE. That's code BRACE for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5, and it's only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, Pennsylvania only. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
You okay?
I can't sleep with this cough.
Sounds like you need to vaporize that cold.
Vaporize?
Yeah, with NyQuil VapoCool. It's NyQuil plus a rush of Vicks vapors.
Whoa.
So you ready to get some sleep? Thank you, NyQuil VapoCool.
NyQuil VapoCool, the vaporizing nighttime coughing, aching, fever, best sleep with a cold medicine. And to vaporize sore throat pain, try Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Hey, man, you all right? Need me to call 911? No, call Top Dog Law. Get top dollar for your accident at topdoglaw.com. Once again, that's topdoglaw.com.
Looking to elevate your golf game? Welcome to Penn Club on 2nd in the heart of Conshohocken. With over 350 courses to choose from, 3 state-of-the-art simulator bays powered by TrackMan technology, and a members-only clubhouse open 7 days a week. We're all about the ultimate golfing experience. Enjoy the perks of a family-owned club with affordable membership options for individuals, teams, and even corporate groups. Conveniently located near major highways, you can bring your own beverages and enjoy top-notch food at restaurants nearby. Visit pc2conchi.com to find your membership today.
The Gambler and Gary Barbera on the Boulevard want to put $1,000 in your hand. Keep it locked right here to the Gambler for your chance to win $1,000, all courtesy by our friends over at Gary Barbera on the Boulevard. Each weekday, that's 9 times a day, you'll hear a keyword at the top of the hour, and you could win $1,000. So, is the Gambler and Gary Barbera the best? Boy, I get.
Gary Barbera's Super Gold to stay in control of the most cheap sold for $16,666. Right, Brandon Graham?
Boy, I get.
Boom, shakalaka.
Cheat. Coach Sirianni, is Barbera the best? Boy, I get. Go Birds.
I know, yeah, LSKillSide.com.
On Saturday, February 22nd at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, it's the Pro Volleyball Federation's first All-Star match. The biggest stars will clash in a can't-miss event hosting the Indy metro area, home of the Indy Ignite. Catch every serve, spike, and save live on CBS. Don't miss this historic showdown of volleyball's finest. The Pro Volleyball Federation All-Star Match on February 22nd at 1:30 p.m. Be there.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go: shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms: irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit NoTimeToWait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Looking for a place to witness history when Kansas City takes on Philadelphia? Dave & Buster's has you covered. Massive TVs, next-level food and drinks, and unlimited video games for just $20. Enjoy your favorite cold domestic draft beers for just $5 all day long, and fuel up for the game with 20 mouthwatering wings for only $20. These deals and more are available all day long on Sunday. Don't miss out on the best party in town. Head to Dave & Buster's for unbeatable fun, food, and drinks.
He's coming. Here he goes. Surprise! Your table saw broke. Also, the warranty expired weeks ago, so you need to pay for a new one out of pocket.
At Progressive, we know small business owners don't usually like surprises because they cost you money. But a good surprise that could save you money? Getting a commercial auto quote from Progressive.
Oh, and the replacement part you ordered doesn't fit, so it's completely useless.
What a waste.
Surprise yourself. See if you can save in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Okay, I have to tell you. I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
Hologram trading card. One of the rarest. The last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your
windshield wipers? eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying. Just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay. Things people love.
ZipRecruiter is the place. ZipRecruiter is the place for talented teachers, savvy software developers, and master mixologists. ZipRecruiter is the place where you meet all these people and more. That's because ZipRecruiter is the place for job seekers who are looking for new opportunities. In fact, ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day, so you can find the right candidates right away. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Increasing clouds and cold tonight. Overnight low 26 for your Wednesday. Mostly cloudy, cold. The high only 35 degrees. And we will get a bit of snow in parts of our area in the afternoon. Some areas could get about a coating to an inch. But then the real problems happen Wednesday night into Thursday morning, turning messy. Snow, sleet, freezing rain, eventually changing over to rain. Thursday morning commute could be a big problem. I'm meteorologist Cecily Tynan with your 6 ABC AccuWeather forecast.
This report is sponsored by Jackson Hewitt. It matters who does your taxes. Jackson Hewitt makes taxes feel like a yacht rock song. Get your max tax refund guaranteed, and new customers get $100 to switch. Don't miss the boat. Book an appointment with experts today. Limited time offer for new clients. Participating locations only. Terms at jacksonhewitt.com.
I'm Greg Rosenthal, host of NFL Daily. Join me live from Radio Row in New Orleans. I'll be interviewing the NFL's biggest names all week long. NFL Daily will have you ready for this year's big moment. Will it be Mahomes completing the three-peat or Jalen Hurts avenging their Super Bowl 57 loss? We'll be there on the field after the game. Full recap, interviews with this year's Super Bowl champions. Don't miss it. Listen to NFL Daily on America's #1 podcast network, iHeart. Follow NFL Daily and start listening on the free iHeartRadio app today.
The Birds are on Bourbon Street, and we're all over it for you. Right here on The Gambler.
And we are back on this side of things here, joined by Mark Henry Jr. on stream. So a lot of exciting stuff swirling in the NBA world. Excited to get into all of it here. Mark, how is the mindset? What's going through on the brain right now?
I watched that Luka press conference today with Rob Pelinka, and it just a lot of people were tweeting about it. It just feels like something is off in the simulation.
Junior, no sound coming through on my end. Figuring out the problem here. It should be we're all hooked up, but I'll throw it to Ryan Coyle while I get this sorted out. Ryan, a lot of moving parts in the NBA world. What's going through your brain?
Yeah, KJ Martin, as of right now, ruled out tonight for the Sixers game with a pending trade. I'm sure he feels good about that, knowing that he's on the move. Also, as well, Eric Gordon ruled out tonight, Kyle Lowry, and Andre Drummond, I think, as well. So some more potential moves. We talked about that before we went to break. That Caleb Martin trade we didn't think was going to be the first domino out. So looking forward to seeing what else goes on.
Yeah, very strange that this is all going down before the game here and trying to figure out exactly what this means, heads or tails, for this Eagles team, or for the Sixers team here. So obviously a lot going around in the NBA world as a whole. Excited to dive into it in each. And Mark, let's see if we're coming through at this point. You got any word for us here? Let's see.
Testing. Am I coming through all right? Testing. Sixers.
And Mark is not muted. So we're going to keep on cruising here as the Sixers get ready for the countdown here.
Live radio, baby.
Yeah, live radio cooking through. And as these cook, so, we're going to jump into one more quick break while we get this sorted. We're going to be back in 2 minutes and get Mark on us for the real deal here.
Grease the polls because Bourbon Street has officially turned midnight green.
How about our quarterback? I knew he was going to play that way. I knew it. Don't doubt him. All he does is win.
All things Big Game 59 right here on The Gambler. Fox Sports Radio, The Gambler. Now, total traffic for Philadelphia.
Testing.
This report is sponsored by Straight Talk Wireless. Don't let data limits hold you back from being the gift master in the family group chat. Switch to Straight Talk Wireless and get real unlimited data on a reliable 5G network. Straight Talk, available at Walmart or straighttalk.com.
touchdowns. Are you ready to place your first bet? We'll try betting on something simple like a player to score 6. All you got to do is just go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and make your pick. New DraftKings customers, listen up. You can bet just $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. All you got to do is just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use my promo code BRACE. That's code BRACE for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5, and it's only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, Pennsylvania only. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
Your home for Villanova basketball is WDAS and WD273D, Fox Sports Radio Philadelphia. The time has come to finish the story. Talking all things Big Game 59 with a focus on the Eagles. Now, here are your hosts, Sean Barnard and Ryan Coyle.
All right, hopefully a little bit better luck on this side of things. It's coming through crazy loud through the ears, so trying to figure that out as well. Just right on this end, and we are good to go. So Mark Henry Jr., do we have you? Finish the story on the shirt. He is fired up. How we doing, my man?
I'm doing great. We're all fired up. I
Still
don't know.
just getting music from this. I'm not sure what the problem is as Sean Brace continues. Trying to figure out exactly. Maybe we just stop on that if Mark will come through there. And let's see if we have Mark Henry Jr. to finish the story. Take 3.
testing.
And still nothing. I do not understand. You hear him. No, just me. So strange that is not coming through. It does look like everything's cooked up on this end. I'm going to toss it to Ryan as we figure out a little bit of Kevin Durant now downgraded to doubtful as the trade conversations murmur on. Anything there? Any thoughts?
Wow. I remember I sent you a tweet earlier.
Yes, from
I believe it was a Mavericks reporter.
It was one of my coworkers at DraftKings Nation. It was
Grant.
Yes.
Yeah. So the tweet earlier said multiple league sources have told me that there is increasing belief that Kevin Durant lands with the Golden State Warriors. Plenty has to happen, but the Warriors' pursuit of this trade has been aggressive. Just figured I'd mention this as something to watch as the deadline looms, and it for sure sounds like the Warriors are trying to.
Oh, and I hear Mark Henry Jr. All right, I think we're all back and fixed. So yeah. Mark, how we doing? We finally got you.
We're doing good. Sorry about that, boys. I think I was coming through on the stream the whole time, so people heard my my beautiful testing voice there. But I'm doing fantastic. How could you not be doing fantastic? I felt like last week, how it was tough making it through a full week where we didn't have an Eagles game on the Sunday when it was 2 weeks away. There we got Brace in the background over there. The 2 weeks off in between the week off in between the Super Bowl is death when you're in it. I mean, it is just, we have been breaking this game down from every possible angle. I'm ready for this darn thing to get started. Blow the whistle, as Gilly would say.
Yeah, 100% there. So Brace, shout out for chasing the gremlins out of the system, leaving the studio now. But Mark,
kicking some ass.
Absolutely. But Mark, we got plenty to get into. We've talked a little bit about this game. I do want to start off before we dig back into it. The NBA world is absolutely humming. So I know you had a take of Quentin Grimes is straight up better than Caleb Martin at this point. Do you want to hear your thoughts on that exactly, as well as everything else going on with the Sixers team currently?
Yeah, I just think that when you look at those types of guys, they're both 3-and-D type guys. And when one guy's shooting almost double the amount of threes per 36 as the other guy, give me the guy who takes more threes more than 2 in the 2025 world of the NBA. I mean, you've heard me talk about draft guys and trade targets, and it's always about shooting more than defense than for me, as long as the guy can somewhat hold his own on that side of the ball. Caleb is a better defender, and more of a 3 defender than a 2 defender. I do think you look at the fact that we have Paul George locked in, whether we like it or not, Justin Edwards emerging, Ricky Council emerging, Kelly Oubre on the books for another year at least. It became obvious that maybe Caleb Martin was a little bit more expendable, especially out of kind of being locked into his deal for 4 years, where Quentin Grimes kind of slots perfectly into that third guard role in the future. If you're looking at a Maxey McCain kind of core with Embiid, hopefully, you're looking at, I feel like a guy with Grimes that can play with either Maxey or McCain. And I think that maybe you could sneak through against certain lineups playing all 3 at the same time if you wanted to run a Maxey McCain Grimes lineup. I do think that that's possible. So I really like Quentin Grimes. And realistically, you look at how free agency went last year, how many guys were kind of left holding the bag without an offer? How likely is it that someone offers Quentin Grimes more than 3 years, $21 million, which was what was left on the Caleb Martin deal? I think it's probably around that deal that you're giving him this offseason. I mean, restricted. So to me, the fact that the Sixers are over the cap, if you're trading for a restricted guy, that's one of your only avenues to improving your team and keeping the guy. So I do think this trade means Grimes will be here going forward. And I'm excited about that. You know that I've been a big Grimes guy for a while, dating back to his days on the Knicks and dating back to his days in college at Houston. I liked him, and he was a guy that went right before we took Jaden Springer, just like Cam Thomas. So righted that wrong a little bit there. But I like Quentin Grimes a lot. I like the move a bunch.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously still a lot of moving parts around this trade deadline with KJ Martin being ruled out. No Eric Gordon, no Kyle Lowry tonight. We'll be interested if that is purely health related or if that is trade related there, as well as I think there's at least one big time trade set to go down in the NBA with all these rumors swirling. Now, before we dive back into the football world, Mark, I know you had a little college basketball, a couple picks that you want to give out and take. So you want to jump in on that before we switch back over to football?
Yeah, I mean, yes, for sure. A couple are coming up right here at 7:00. A couple of money in the dumpster plays here in the A10. The St. Louis has been an absolute under factory. If you look at them, 4-17 on the year to the under. So give me under 152.5. St. Louis UMass. I don't think UMass is some offensive machine that any St. Louis line should be above like 140, let alone 152.5. So that's probably my favorite college basketball play of the year so far. I love the over in Drake Murray State. I got it at 123. I think you can get it at 122.5 now. So an even better number. Kentucky plus 4.5 at Ole Miss. That's one that I think Kentucky's due for a bounce back. Just a brutal loss to Arkansas. I mean, that's something you can't have happen. If Mark Pope is worth his salt, kind of as a coach, I think you get a bounce back performance. Obviously, Chris Beard really good as well. Ole Miss solid team, but I do think 4.5. It does feel like Kentucky's a team that the books just like haven't figured out. Like they were a 10.5 point dog at Tennessee and won outright. Then they're a huge dog at home against Arkansas, expected to kind of lay the boom against their former coach, and they lose outright. It's kind of one of those things where I think Vegas is just a little bit off. So 4.5, I kind of like getting the 4.5 points there. And then the last one I'll say, I like USC at Northwestern, but more so I like the over in that game at 139.5. Muss always kind of plays a fast tempo. USC is 15-6 to the over, but the more important part is Northwestern's hit their last 10 overs here coming into this game, 16-6 on the year. So really two really good teams towards the over. I think this number should be up at that 150 total instead of that 139.5 area. So those would be my favorite plays of the night.
Yeah, and Mark has been red hot on the hardwood there, so love to see it. Ryan, any thoughts on any of those plays or any last college basketball takes before we switch over to the main event? Finish the story right here.
I just know no one hates the Billikens more than Mark, and it seems.
No, I love them. I appreciate their defense. I'm here chanting defense, watching my Billikens.
Robbie Avila, baby. The Billikens are one of my favorite teams when I was like little, just because of obviously the name the Billikens, and then Jordair Jet. Shout out him back in the day. That was one of my first kind of college basketball memories. But I'm a little surprised that this is going off the rails to an Atlantic 10 basketball talk, but a little bit surprised that the Billikens haven't been better. I thought that was going to be a pretty solid team in the A10 this year. Brought a bunch of the guys from Indiana State last year with them, and that was one of the more fun teams in the country last year. So they've been a little bit disappointing, but I will say they're a team I'm keeping an eye on in like once it gets to conference tournament time. Could be a team that makes a nice run in the A10 that I think is wide open. But a couple big time SEC like bounce back type of games that I'm looking at tonight. Vanderbilt and Florida both got drubbed on Saturday. Vanderbilt to Oklahoma, Florida to Tennessee. How do these teams come back? Kentucky as well with the big time home loss. Ole Miss, I like them to win outright on Saturday against Auburn. Was in it for most of the game, wound up losing that game. So some SEC teams tonight in that conference that there's no nights off, obviously. Interested to see how some of these squads bounce back tonight.
You want to hear, if we want to get crazy, my hot take of the day, one of LaSalle, I got him at plus 19 at VCU, or Oklahoma plus 17 at Auburn. One of those teams wins outright, or at least comes pretty close. LaSalle or Oklahoma. I took them both to cover. I do think both teams are live tonight. And Auburn, that line, and I love Auburn. I've been big on this Auburn team all year long. I think they're probably, I would still probably take them over Duke at this point. 17.5 is a lot of points for an Oklahoma team. 16-5 that's played really well. Like you just said, laid the boom on a Vanderbilt team that's probably solidly in the tournament right now. So they competed with Texas A&M. They beat Arkansas, competed with Texas. I think Oklahoma is going to play them close. And then LaSalle and VCU kind of goes back to what you were just saying on the A10. A10, no one's really stepped up. I'm surprised they're giving VCU the credit of being a 19-point favorite here, but Dayton's been really disappointing. The Bonnies have went ice cold after starting hot. I've seen, if you look at the projected brackets, people have George Mason as the projected team. It's craziness.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I will say this Super Bowl run has certainly prevented me from getting as in the weeds with college basketball as I expected to be. So next week, I'm all in. I'm diving in full force, fully into the deep end there. But for the time being, we do have a massive game to talk about here. So, Mark, I know we opened up the show with me and Ryan kind of speaking about it feels so long, this 2-week process, the layoff for the Super Bowl. The vibes were sky high. The confidence was sky high pretty much straight throughout. Where are you at right now as far as your confidence level for this game? Have you swayed at all? Is any doubt in this Eagles team? Or are you still riding heavy?
Nah, I feel the exact same way I felt when as soon as that Chiefs-Bills game ended. This is going to be a war. There is nothing easy about what's going to happen. Luke Arcaney, our guy, I forget when he tweeted it, but last week he's like, I'm starting to feel like the Eagles win and win big. And I think that he belongs in jail, Luke Arcaney. You can clip that out. Send my brother to jail for tweeting that out. This game is not going to be a blowout. This is going to be an all-out, guns blazing shootout fight to the death, in my opinion. And the last guy standing will truly be, the deserving champion of this season. I think these are the two best teams in the sport. These are the best teams that either team has faced so far this season. I think, outside of us and having to stressfully sit through 60 minutes against the champs and against Patrick Mahomes going for his third straight title, for a non-Eagles and non-Chiefs fan, I feel like there's a lot of complaining going on about this Super Bowl, and it's a repeat, and everybody's buddy Josh Allen isn't there, and people got hooked on Washington and Jaden Daniels. If I was a non-fan of the Super Bowl, I'd be pumped about the fact that I really do think you have the two best teams playing in the end of the year, the two teams that haven't played each other. There is that storyline from 2 years ago. I think this going into the game, this is one of the better Super Bowls, in recent memory, and I think that. I keep going back to the fact the Chiefs are going for their third straight championship. They're for a three-peat. It's never been done before. And they're only a 1.5-point favorite. That just goes to show how much respect. And I know every year is different, but Vegas's job is to set a line to get action on both sides and not to just get action all on one side. Vegas has a pretty good idea that people are going to bet the Chiefs and people are going to bet Patrick Mahomes to win a Super Bowl if you set that money line at a bettable price. And they still gave the Eagles the respect of making them only a 1.5-point dog. And I was listening to the Bears podcast for Fox, and they had the guy from Westgate in Vegas come on, and he was saying that he expects the Eagles to close favored, and that's kind of the feeling he's getting throughout the sportsbooks in the industry, despite a lot of the public money coming in on Kansas City. And I think that just goes to show how incredible this Eagles team is, how good this roster is. You guys have hammered it home all week, but outside of the head coach and quarterback spots, it's really hard to find a lot of spots where Kansas City's much better. Philly is just such a well-rounded team, and more than anybody, you can credit Howie Roseman for being the most valuable guy in terms of getting them here.
Yeah, and it is kind of crazy when you take a little bit of the peek behind the curtain of how much the Eagles have nailed such important roles that you don't think about. Jeff Stoutland, a huge example of how he shaped his offensive line. Howie Roseman, obviously there. The improvements at the coordinator position on both sides of the ball this year, which we clearly have seen have made all the difference. So this has been a night and day different team. And Mark, I know you and I have talked about this plenty on the show last week, but Ryan, I did want to get your thoughts. I think this Eagles team is significantly better than the team that challenged him 2 years ago. Mark, not quite as heavy on that take. He was fair and sticking up for the defense, breaking the sack record, things that people do forget in that. But when comparing this team to the one that tried to knock down Patrick Mahomes the first time, how do you feel about this particular outlook?
Yeah, I mean, I think I said it earlier this week. I was like, all right, say the Eagles win the Super Bowl this year, 20, 25 years down the line, you look back and you're like, wow, that team had X amount of Hall of Famers. Like, I know it's hard to project. Obviously, a lot of the people on this team are young, but I could see a path where there's 6 to 7 guys from this Eagles roster that are Hall of Famers. I don't think we can necessarily say the same from that old team from 2022. And one of the big things is I saw it on Good Morning Football this week too. When you compare the at least like defensive lines, there's so much more youth in this group compared to the old one. And we were talking about it earlier with the Knicks, but it was like guys get older and they get worn down easier. This is a team that's going to have fresh legs. And obviously the turf and the grass was a big issue in the Super Bowl last time. But I think the speed and just having the relentlessness that they're going to need for 60 minutes to chase Patrick Mahomes is going to be a big factor in this one, a motivating factor. You can point as well as, all right, this might not be as experienced as a team in the big spots, but still they have more than enough veterans, more than enough experience. I'm just so much more confident in the defense this time around to figure it out because still that team that year had a lot of questions. I know they were highly ranked defense, but there were still certain spots and scenarios where they were able to get picked apart. This team I'm so much more confident in, besides a 2-minute drill, though, which is kind of the biggest thing in this game.
Yeah, and that is. And Mark, to throw it to you now, we're kind of obviously here with an Eagles stance that we have a little bit of our Eagles sunglasses on to take a completely neutral approach. Look at these teams. How does this game go wrong for the Eagles if they are not the team to come out on top? What is your biggest concern?
I think my concern is that the Chiefs are going to be smart enough to abandon the run. I think this Eagles run defense is so good and so consistent that the Chiefs are not going to be able to get the run game started. I think if you played against the Bills team, that would almost have played into our hands where the Bills would have tried to run the ball so much and ran their heads into a brick wall a bit. I think Kansas City's just going to say, okay, you guys are playing 8 to 10 yards off the line of scrimmage on our receivers. We're going to run 4 or 5 yard slants and see if you can step up and do anything about it. And against other teams, you take that chance and you hope, they get a holding and an eligible man downfield, a drive gets thrown off, and that's how the Fangio style goes. But against Patrick Mahomes, they don't make mistakes. The Chiefs don't make mistakes. So you get concerned that they're going to be able to just get those 7-8 yards in the passing game every single time that they want it without very many, without very much inefficiency or taking sacks or turning the ball over, or getting penalties. The concern is Travis Kelce goes for like 10 for 140 and a touchdown or two. They make a couple plays happen in the red zone. We don't make a couple plays happen in the red zone. I will say I don't see the Eagles being blown out in this game in any capacity. Like I think no matter what, both sides, I really feel like there's not many scenarios. This is not a close game.
Yeah.
But to me, it's all on the offense. To me, the offense is going to have to score 30 points because I really do think the defense is giving up 24, 27, 28. Like I don't think you're stopping this Kansas City team on the biggest stage from scoring. And that's not even a negative part against the defense. I think we have the best defense in the sport, but I do think that Kansas City is going to be able to move the ball. They just had the highest success rate any quarterbacks had in an NFL game this season last week against the Bills. And the Bills, a worse defense than us for sure. But they also had a fumble in that game, Kansas City. So are they going to fumble again? Are we going to be able to force the same amount of fumbles that we've forced the last couple games, especially in a special teams perspective? That's what concerns me
as well.
That's true. Yeah, and recover.
I think I saw today plus 27 we are in the turnover differential since week 5.
Wow.
That's once again, that's a skill. I think that is something that Nick Sirianni talked about where they broke down every peanut punch. And that's been a main kind of point of emphasis and taking care of the football from Jalen's perspective as well. But still, like 4 fumbles, you're fortunate enough to recover all of them. You have bad vibes that's going to not go to plan against the Kansas City Chiefs.
I would say, and yeah, the peanut punch, like I love that they're doing that. Every little bit, helps in these close games and things like that. I mean, that's awesome stuff. And I love that Nick is so passionate about that. But I will say, like, I think in terms of the turnover margin, I would say that us not turning the ball over is a skill 100%. That is something that you have to, say that at this point, the fact that they're not turning the ball over is not just some turnover luck that's based for turnover regression. It's part of how they call the game, to the chagrin of some people in ways that maybe we're not aggressive down the field in the way that some people want us to be. But I mean, the proof's in the pudding at this point. They're 14-0 when Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, and Lane Johnson start and finish a game. They average 29.5 points per game in those 14 games. They've scored 24 plus in 11 of those 14 games. So I have no doubts that the offense is going to show up and show out, because that's exactly what Jalen did the last time he was in the biggest game of his life.
By the way, shout out Peanut Tillman for one of the coolest sports legacies that I can think of for that. Who would have thought just one time he had the thought, like, maybe I just punch the ball and all of a sudden we start forcing fumbles. But shout out to him. The legacy lives on there. And one other kind of storyline that I think is interesting, how big the story is being made about this, it is the refereeing and the Chiefs conversation. Now, granted, I'm not going to be the guy that sit here and say I believe it, but there is an aspect of me that kind of likes that it's being brought up. Like Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes looking visibly annoyed, as would I in those shoes. So I'll throw it to you first, Mark. Do you take any sort of weight of this? I'm not saying that I believe in it, but do you think the mental standpoint of being asked about it constantly is anything that can help out this Eagles team?
No, I'm so sick of it, because like the Chiefs have won 9 straight playoff games. They've won, I think it's 18 of their last 21. Like, I just think it's a situation where like maybe 1 or 2 times you could point to and complain, but I think the proof's in the pudding with over a long stretch of time. I don't think the refs have helped them win 18 of 21 games. So
no doubt.
I get sick of it. I think it's like some of the people that take it so seriously, hint, my dad listening, but some of the people out there, like, I think it's playing to the lowest common denominator. And there's people out there who are mad that the Chiefs beat their team, and it's something to grasp onto and be like, hey, I didn't lose, I was rigged. I can think of something that kind of rings that way politically as well, but I won't go that far.
Ryan, anything for you on the refs and the Chiefs?
I do get annoyed, and I think it is a wide, league-wide kind of criticism of the Mahomes kind of antics, especially on like the sideline, and sometimes how he can get babied in that regard. But I'm there with Mark, where it's like, if somebody's just going to keep winning, you're going to make up, an excuse. You're going to make up a reason why, and it's kind of hard to point when you're the Chiefs and they just continue to keep winning. Obviously, they got some magic on their sides, it seems like at times. And maybe Patrick Mahomes gets a couple more calls, but the rigged conversation is no excuse. You got to go out there and execute your plays at the end of the day.
And maybe there's times we could have pointed to it. The thing that I just can't have, I have no sympathy for the Bills. You got the ball back down 3 with 3 minutes left. You had timeouts. You had your chance to go down the field and not just tie the game, but win the game. That was finally your chance to slay the dragon. You had your guy with the ball in his hands, and he got 16 yards. Couldn't get past midfield before you had a 4th down. So I don't have a lot of sympathy for Buffalo.
Yeah, and that will be a drive that sticks in my memory when we talk about Josh Allen moving forward. I won't lie to you there. So we'll move past that for now to get it back to this exact Super Bowl. Mark Henry Jr., you've been well on record forever, the best bet in all of sports. Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown. We're looking at -110 for the Super Bowl. Is that your best bet for this matchup, or do you have anything else that you think is even higher on the priority list?
No, that's absolutely the best bet. You look at over my last couple. I mean, I was 12-6 at plus 38 units this year when betting Jalen. 11-6 at plus 53.5 units last year. 12-5 at plus 23.5 units the year before. There's nothing that in sports that could ever come close for me to the efficiency of the Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown bet. My favorite non-Jalen bet in the game would be Nolan Smith over 0.25 sacks, though. I think that's actually switched from plus money to now I think it's around -115 on DraftKings. But he's gotten a sack in 5 of the last 6 sacks in that stretch, 8 sacks in the last 10 games. He's kind of blossoming as a truly elite pass rusher in front of our eyes in the biggest games of his life as a pro. So awesome to see. One of the biggest one of the biggest revelations of this playoff run, kind of.
Yeah, 100% there. And last question for you before I do want to get a Sixers prediction on the way out here. But if you had to name your top X factor for the Super Bowl overall, is there a player, a matchup, or a battle, positional battle? Is there anything that you think will be the ultimate deciding factor in the Super Bowl? What is the number one thing that you're looking for? You're saying this game comes down to what?
I feel like Travis Kelce and A.J. Brown would be the 2 guys that I kind of zero in on, because I think they're both going to get theirs, But are they going to dominate and kind of take over the game? Is Travis Kelce going to go over that kind of like 130 plus? Is he going to get like 2 touchdowns? Or is on the other end, the reason I'm betting AJ Brown 35-1, like I do think this has a chance to be the AJ Brown legacy game and kind of the game where AJ Brown stamps himself as truly one of the top, very, very tippy top receivers in the NFL. You know, he has that contract that shows that he is that. And I think before the year we were talking about him as that. He was first round pick in fantasy. Obviously the stats were a little down this year. They were a rushing attack, but I think you have a chance in this game to go 7-8 catches for 120 plus, maybe a touchdown or 2, and be the story coming out of this game. Maybe you get a couple shots on the Super Bowl sideline reading inner excellence after a touchdown catch or something, or maybe you get the game-winning touchdown as Mahomes is driving to try to tie the game. You have AJ just reading his book on the sideline or something. I don't know, but I do think when you said that to me, that's where my mind went, because I do think that both of those guys have a big day, but whoever kind of has a bigger day and takes over the game more might kind of determine the game.
Yeah, 100% there. Any thoughts for you on that one, Ryan? Any particular matchup or battle that you think may have the largest part in deciding this game?
My X factor actually for the Chiefs, and it can kind of come back in the Eagles' face as well, is Harrison Butker actually in the kicking game. I was looking at statistics from these last 3 playoffs for as they're going for this three-peat now. Harrison Butker, 5 of 5 on extra points, 3 of 3 on field goals this playoffs, 8 of 8 on extra points, 11 of 11 on field goals last playoffs, and in the 2022 run, 10 of 10 on extra points and 6 of 7 on field goals. So 23 of 23 on extra points, 20 of 21 on field goals the last 3 playoffs. He's a weapon. I think I heard today as well. He is the most accurate kicker in playoff history. So the Chiefs have a weapon there, and then it's a situation where the Eagles aren't as confident. I know Mark's been on that for a while.
Yeah.
Kind of my take on that situation was like, what guy are we going to pull off the streets? I'd still rather have Jake in a clutch moment. Indoors might be a little bit different as well, but you look at Harrison Butker and his success. I think one of these kickers is going to make a huge kick to either have a huge kick that either goes in or misses that's going to have a huge role in deciding the end of this game. So Harrison Butker, I'm really looking at him, and if he gets trotted out there for a 50-yarder for the win, I'm going to be having my eyes closed for sure.
Yeah. And it feels stupid to bring this up as an X factor, but Saquon, instead of being what we had in 2022, which was 17 carries for 45 yards from the running backs. So we don't necessarily need Saquon to go for the 200 plus yards that he's been accustomed to here in the last couple of weeks, but you probably do need 100. You probably need that 20 for 100 at the least, or maybe 25 for 100 at the least. So
you need that home run play.
Yeah,
I really think that, especially early, like
game changing.
That is such a momentum booster, I think, for that team. And it's just like I think the Eagles are going into this game confident for sure, but I think a 50, 60-yard touchdown run in the first or second quarter gives that team kind of that jolt of energy, that jolt of momentum that, we're here and we're actually going to do it this time. We're going to finish the story.
Yeah, and shout out to the finish the story call there. Shout out to the Sixers for having Deshaun Jackson ring the bell tonight. I do think that's a nice touch. University of Delaware Del State head coach Deshaun Jackson. Just shout out to him there. Mark, before we get out of here, any predictions for the Sixers game? Joel Embiid back after a 15-game absence. The trade rumor is swirling. Any takes before we get you off here?
Yeah, I mean, they should win tonight. I kind of wish they would have sat him tonight and played him tomorrow against Miami, who is probably, if you are caring about the playoffs, that's a team you maybe would hope could tumble down without Jimmy, or if they make a trade down the stretch. So I probably would have held him out tonight and played him tomorrow. That's kind of the only thing I'd say about it. But I'm excited to watch the game tonight for the first time in a good bit here.
Yeah, 100% there. So shout out to the Sixers coming back. Mark Henry Jr., shout out to you for popping on the stream here. And we're going to go a nice seamless transition here. We're going to bring on my guy, Anthony DiBona, to join us. He is the Eagles lead writer for Philly Sports Network. I apologize for the abrupt pull on there, but very excited to have you on the show. So, Anthony, before we get fully into things, how we doing, my guy?
I'm doing good. Is my camera blurry? It looks like it's blurry on my end. I could try and back out if it helps.
A little bit, but no worries. We can, if you want,
there
we'll
it
do
is.
this.
I think it's good now.
Yeah,
think it's
more
good now.
cleaned up. So we are
Cool.
good to go. Yeah. So a lot to break down as far as this Eagles game. Before we get fully into the game exactly, do you want to talk a little bit about you exactly? So I did not realize you were a disciple of Sean Brace as well, who is, of course, the godfather to everything that is the Gambler here. Said you did a little bit of work with Philly Influencer. So talk to me a little bit about your path and how you got involved with things. And obviously, shout out to all the guys at Philly Sports Network, Liam Jenkins, Zach Chavalella, truly some of the best guys in the industry there. So talk to me a little bit about your path.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. I mean, I was a fan of the team growing up and then played football, basketball growing up. And then I realized at a certain point, like, hey, you're not going to make it to the league, buddy. So I kind of flipped to journalism and then pursued that. Went to college for a couple of years, got my degree in journalism. But it's kind of cool because Sean Brace kind of gave me one of my first opportunities as far as writing was, like Philly Influencer. I think it was back in like 2016, something like that, like way before a lot of other stuff, maybe even earlier than that. So it's kind of cool to kind of come full circle. And now I'm here talking to you guys. I'm excited.
Yeah, 100%. So appreciate you taking the time. It's been a long lead up for this game and really this entire season. So not that there weren't obviously high hopes for it, but what has it been like for you having a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, being involved, covering this team in the locker room, having all those type of things? What has it been like this season as a whole for you?
I mean, it's been fun to watch. I mean, I got finally kind of achieved my goal in life of getting credentials for week 18. So that was cool to even be in that locker room in the first place. But just following the team, kind of seeing their evolution throughout the season, it's crazy to think that at the bye week, just in week 5, that we were kind of like, they were 2-2. Everybody was like, we don't know if Nick Sirianni is going to survive. Like, what's going to happen? And they kind of just flipped that switch. Cooper DeJean got inserted into the slot. They made a couple of changes here and there, and they've kind of just taken off ever since then. So it's kind of crazy to think that's all happened in the same season. It's been such a long journey and only a handful of months, but this game is finally here. It feels like these 2 weeks have taken an eternity, but I'm excited that it's finally here.
100%. Now, to talk about this team as a whole, obviously, we saw this Eagles team come up just 2 seasons ago on this same stage in the Super Bowl. The number one reason why I'm arguing that this time will be different starts with the man right behind Jalen Hurts in Saquon Barkley here. So not that obviously everyone wasn't aware what a ridiculous talent that Saquon Barkley is. It's been clear forever. I did not realize he was quite the level of what we've seen this year. I mean, the 9th running back in NFL history to run for over 2,000 yards in the season has a chance and a pretty likely chance to break the all-time rushing record as far as from the season as a whole with regular season and playoffs. So talk a little bit about what Saquon has exactly brought to this Eagles team, and has he exceeded your expectations in the same way?
It's funny because, I mean, I live in New York City, so I've seen, I mean, my family's all Giants fans. I've kind of seen the praise and then I guess the fall of Saquon Barkley in New York, whereas when he finally signed with the Eagles. But it's just, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I knew he was good. I didn't think he was going to be at this level. Like, I mean, there were questions about his health and things like that and his impact and how many snaps he can handle and carries he can handle. But I mean, he's exceeded every expectation possible. I mean, this is probably the best debut season for a player potentially in NFL history. I mean, Zach Bond might be up there too with the way that he's played this season. So the Eagles have kind of got the best of both worlds in that regard. But I wrote for my Eagles mailbag, actually, for Philly Sports Network that was published today. Somebody had asked, like, what is the X factor for the Eagles heading into this game? And I said Saquon Barkley. And I know that's kind of maybe a cop-out answer, but it's the truth, because we've seen how in the last Super Bowl, the Eagles running backs averaged 2.6 yards per carry, and they had basically no effect. It was Jalen Hurts essentially putting the entire team on his back, both passing and running the ball, where now whenever he's struggled throughout this season, or even when he's playing well, Saquon Barkley's kind of that easy button from Staples in the backfield where they could just hand the ball to him. And if he can get 30, 50, 60, 70 yards, I mean, there's really no telling what he can do. But what I really like is the fact that even when they've kind of had to work through where he's only getting 3 yards, 4 yards, 2 yards, maybe a TFL, but they still give him the ball and eventually he breaks off that big run. I feel like that's kind of what the Giants were afraid to do when they had such a poor offensive line, that they couldn't really rely on him to do so consistently. Whereas with the Eagles offensive line, eventually you're going to get the better of the team and Saquon Barkley's going to break a big run. So he's the X factor in this game.
Yeah, Anthony, my question for you would be kind of game plan perspective, just as you were just talking about Saquon, obviously that ability to break a big run. And that was my take the other day when I was on here as well. It's like Saquon has like 2-3 yard carries. Sometimes he's not really getting 6, 7 first downs, but they keep feeding him the ball consistently, and his yards per carry look low. And then the next thing you know, he's running off for a 55, 60 yarder. But a lot of people, especially on the station here this week, have been talking about go out there aggressive, go out there throwing the football. Jalen showed the ability to do it before, arguably having his best passing game in the NFL. Do you see a different kind of game plan from what the Eagles have done to get here and go out there and throw against a Steve Spagnuolo defense early and often? Or do you think that they do what has got them there basically and ride the coattails of Saquon, give them 25, 30 touches? Because obviously, as we know, no games behind this to rest up for anymore.
It's interesting because especially the last game that they played, it was kind of like Washington just sold out to stop Saquon Barkley, and they kind of forced Jalen Hurts to beat them, and he did. So the fact that they were able to kind of do that and work through that, and they're literally their last game is, I think, is a telling sign for this matchup, because I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it, don't adjust. I feel like you should just feed Saquon Barkley until they can prove that he can stop him, because especially if you look at the 2 playoff games that the Chiefs have played, they allowed both Joe Mixon and James Cook to average well over a yard better than they did in the regular season. So I think both of them averaged over 5 yards per carry or 6 yards. Like, it was something ridiculous. Like, so now to think that Saquon Barkley, somebody that's already almost averaging 6 yards per carry, the fact that you're putting him against this team, and I feel like those other 2 teams, maybe they got a little too scared of sticking to the run. They felt like they had to pass to keep up or whatever the case was. I think the Eagles have everything in their arsenal to just run it until they prove that they can stop it. And then when they do, then it's Jalen Hurts has shown that they can kind of have those blitz beaters, and Kellen Moore's done a really good job with that as well. So I think either way, I think they'll be good, but I wouldn't be surprised if they lean on the run to start.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with there as well. And we've kind of approached all this with, I think, a great deal of confidence in this Eagles team, rightfully so. They've earned it throughout the season as a whole. But Patrick Mahomes is still Patrick Mahomes, and this surely will be a battle here. So my question would be, how do the Eagles lose this game? Or if things go downhill, what do you think is the number one thing that caused it? What's your biggest concern from an Eagles perspective heading into this game?
I mean, the biggest thing, and I feel like it's been the concern even since early in the season or dating back to last season, is just they can't shoot themselves in the foot with turnovers, or like obviously the missed field goals with Jake Elliott can be a concern in this game if the defense for Kansas City does hold them. So things like that, pretty much where they're going to have to make their own mistakes, and they're going to have to lose this game more so than the Chiefs are going to have to win this game. I feel like the Eagles are the more talented team. I think they could win convincingly if they play a clean game, but it's just a matter of them. Like, you want to see Jalen Hurts get rid of the ball clean, get rid of the ball quickly. If he's starting to hold onto the ball where he's getting thrown off a little bit by Spagnuolo's blitzes or his pressure looks, that he's kind of gotten the better of quarterbacks in recent weeks, I feel like that's where they can get into trouble, where just the passing game has no rhythm. Saquon Barkley gets bottled up a little bit, and then all of a sudden they're trailing by a touchdown or 2, and now they feel like they have to make up ground. That's where they can get in trouble. But I think if they play a clean game, if he can avoid any fumble or interception, I think they'll be doing good. They'll be in good shape.
Yeah, and it's interesting you brought up Jake Elliott here. I never thought in a million years we'd be talking about this as a point of concern or a potential weakness in this Eagles team, but nonetheless, here we are. And I do think this is a factor that we have to. And more so than just the missed kicks to me, you see some of the decision-making from Nick Sirianni that there clearly is not that same trust. That is an impact when you're talking about like game planning or making decisions, or do you go for the 4th down? Do you allow here? What is your level of concern for, number one, Jake Elliott being able to step up and nail that kick? And number 2, how much this does impact that game from that exact kind of game planning or decision-making standpoint there?
Well, luckily, Jake Elliott, like throughout his career, I think I saw a stat today that he's made like 96% of his field goal attempts in dome. So luckily, he won't have to worry about the wind or anything like that. But he did miss a 60-yard field goal in New Orleans early this season. So, I mean, granted, it's a 60-yarder. Ideally, you don't want to be attempting that anyway. But I think, regardless of how Jake Elliott's playing or if he's struggling, I think the Eagles and Nick Sirianni, they have to be aggressive in this game. And in each of the 2 of the playoff games this season, we've already seen him kind of go for it in 4th and 4, 4th and 5, where before, maybe during the regular season, he was a little bit more conservative. But given the fact that you're going against Patrick Mahomes, and I don't think Jeffrey Lurie or Howie Roseman is going to want to see this team lose and be conservative. They're going to lose, let it be losing and being aggressive. I mean, I don't know if you want to be Dan Campbell aggressive, where it's just a little bit too much, but I think they can find that balance. And I think when you get into those 4th and short areas, I feel like you have to go for it, because you don't want to give Patrick Mahomes any extra chances to hold the ball, especially late in the game if it's close.
Yeah, hopefully this game isn't being decided on, Devontae Smith pass attempts if we're getting down there. But yeah, to your point, I do agree that the Eagles are not going to win this game taking 3 points instead of 7 when you're going against Patrick Mahomes. But my fault to jump in. Ryan, you got something next?
Yeah, the big thing too with this matchup, and you look at the Chiefs and all the Super Bowls that they've won under Mahomes, they've been trailing at halftime. I saw a screenshot on Twitter today. It was 20-10 with 7 minutes and 10 seconds left. The Chiefs had 3rd and 15, and they wound up winning that game 31-20. Like, you can never feel safe with this team. That goes back to kind of my point on the defensive end for this team. Oren Burks, I think, has been awesome filling in for Nakobe Dean. He's been great in run stops. He's been all around the ball. but I'm worried a little bit about him if he winds up getting matched up with Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce in the big games, as we know, shows up time and time again. The Bills basically last time they played and in the regular season said, anyone else can beat us but you. But I don't think the Eagles kind of have the luxury there at the linebacker spot. Zach Bond's been great, but I don't know necessarily if he's going to get matched up with Travis Kelce throughout the game. How big of a role do you think Kelce will have in ultimately if the Chiefs get a victory here? And what do you think the Eagles' best kind of strategy in this one in terms of locking him up is?
I think it's going to be, obviously, he's going to play a huge role because if you look at their receiving corps overall, it's just, I mean, Xavier Worthy's made plays here and there. Hollywood Brown's working his way back. But outside of that, they really don't have much. They're not an explosive offense by any means through the air or running the ball. Their running game is almost non-existent. So it's kind of interesting because if you look at the numbers, they're not really blowing away teams with this offense that we became used to in recent years where they scored
just find
30.
a way.
Yeah, it's just like it seems like they just grind their way to wins. I mean, it's ugly, but it works, but it's not really what we're used to seeing from the Chiefs. So it's kind of interesting to see how they're attacking it like this season. But Travis Kelce, if they are going to keep up with the Eagles and it becomes a relatively high scoring game, I feel like he's going to be the key contributor for them in the passing game. But also, I think the Eagles are much more well equipped to kind of handle Travis Kelce. Granted, I know Zach Ertz did well in the NFC Championship game, but that was a lot of like Vic Fangio is going to surrender those short games
Right.
and flat and things like that. So he's not going to let you get beat over the top. But at the same time, the Chiefs can beat you with those like death by a million paper cuts where they're just taking the 7 to 8 yard gains and just moving the ball down the field in those meticulous drives. So, I mean, they have the personnel to do it. I think Zach Bond and obviously Cooper DeJean will be huge factors in terms of stopping Travis Kelce. And I think Cooper DeJean overall, if you want like an X factor on the defensive side, I think he makes a huge difference because if you look back at that last Super Bowl, Avonte Maddox was just getting picked on. And
Yeah.
even dating back, even last Super Bowl when Oren Burks from the Niners, he allowed 9 receptions on 9 targets, I think, in coverage, and he was just getting diced up. But I think he's a much better fit in Vic Fangio's scheme where he's used a little bit more going forward, where he can use him on the edge a little bit. He knows to put him in better situations than I think San Fran did. And I think he'll have more time to prepare. He's had a couple games started over the last couple of weeks, so I think that'll help too. But I think overall they just have better personnel to match up and deal with Travis Kelce this time around.
Any two, like, sorry, Sean, but any two or one like unsung hero that you could see making an impact on this Chiefs team? Because I just am having bad PTSD right now of Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore both scoring touchdowns on us. And Kadarius Toney obviously had that long punt return, get them into the red zone. And then they scored the touchdown on the same exact play the opposite way, one to Toney, one to Sky Moore. It feels like the Chiefs always kind of have someone step up. Last year was McCole Hardman. Any guys that you're saying we should keep an eye out for that could potentially be, you know, like a dark horse anytime touchdown scorer in this one?
Well, I don't think it's going to be maybe a passing weapon, but I do worry about Isaiah Pacheco. I think he's kind of like that physical runner, and I mentioned in a couple of shows before where the Eagles, they had a little bit of trouble with Josh Jacobs where he broke off that huge run where he broke 8 tackles or whatever. It was ridiculous. And they have a little bit of trouble with physical runners this season. So I know their Chiefs running game hasn't been great at all this season, basically, but Isaiah Pacheco is kind of the running style and the physical runner that can have his way with the Eagles if they do start to get a little bit of like sloppy with their lane assignments and their tackling. But they've been so much better since the bye week as far as missed tackles. They're one of the best teams, if not the best team in that regard. So I think if there is going to be somebody that would kind of shake up the game and throw the Eagles off, I think it could be Pacheco. If the Chiefs want to go heavy personnel, kind of just pound the ball and just, like I said, do those 10, 15 play drives where they just march down the field, take those little gains, and they don't really have to throw it over your head like the Chiefs did with Tyreek Hill back in the day.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting. The time of possession battle is going to be kind of fascinating to me because I think both sides sort of align, and Vic Fangio clearly more of the, I'll keep them in front of you, prevent the big play, and the Chiefs sort of attack in that same area where the death by a million paper cuts, as you said. Like the Zach Ertz point last week, like statistically and watching the game, it felt like he was everywhere. And I haven't seen the quotes from Fangio, but I would almost guarantee like he looked at it as a win, that none of these did real damage. It's keeping in front, short gains, that kind of thing. And I do expect a similar game plan there. But I did want to swing it back to the other side of thing with this Eagles team. I proudly wear the crown of a Jalen Hurts defender here. And my stance has always been, I think like while he might not have the top tier arm talent of some of these guys, he's been a dude that is excellent at just keeping this team in position wins. And what does he do? He just wins. Sort of a similar conversation with Nick Sirianni. Now, what sticks on our brain from that last Super Bowl, as terrific as Jalen Hurts was, it is still that fumble. And that is one that's going to gotta eat at him more than anyone else in this. So for Jalen Hurts specifically, what have you seen from him on the season-long standpoint that has been different this year? Obviously, Saquon being a factor in that as well. And what is your confidence level that now is his time to truly step on that podium, slay the dragon, and be crowned a champion?
And if you look back since basically since the bye week, since he's come back from the injury, he's just played so clean where he's not really, I mean, granted, he takes a couple sacks that you'd rather him not take, but overall, he's not really putting the ball in harm's way, which early in the season, it seemed like he was kind of doing the same thing as 2023, where people got a little scared off and like, oh no, here we go again. But he's able to kind of like right his wrongs. He's able to clean it up. I know people want to see him put up 250, 300 passing yards a game, but the Eagles really don't need him to do that. They just need him to be efficient, make the timely throws, especially on fourth down to A.J. Brown, these big conversions that he's been able to make with his arm. Obviously, the threat of his legs adds a whole nother element to their offense as well, where they can't just sell out on Saquon Barkley. They can't have that edge crash down. They have to account for Jalen Hurts. He almost acts like a sixth lineman with his legs because of that threat. So, I mean, it might not be the prettiest numbers, like you said. He's not blowing anybody away with 300 yards a game, but the fact that he's been efficient is the most important thing. I think, like I said, if he plays a clean game, the Eagles should be in good shape in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement there. And I am curious, we see sort of a similar storyline where we saw Washington last week really sell out to stop the run unsuccessfully with Saquon Barkley for the larger part with that first round of the game, certainly sticking in the mind, but forcing Jalen Hurts to beat them. Do you think the Chiefs take a similar approach? And for me personally, I've very much talked heavily about, I'm a big believer in if the Eagles win this game, it will be a Jalen Hurts MVP type performance. Is that how you see things going? Or do you think there is a chance that the Eagles do lean on their ground attack a little bit more?
I think they'll lean on the ground game, but I also don't think Kansas City's going to sell out for the run because I feel like they've seen teams kind of in back-to-back weeks do that against the Eagles, and it didn't exactly work because even if you sell out for the run, Saquon Barkley said it himself. He's like, yeah, you can have 7, 8 guys in the box, but if I get past that, you don't have anybody to stop me after that. And I feel like Spagnuolo is he can get creative enough with his defensive fronts where he'll just use sometimes only 2, 3 defensive linemen and then have a bunch of either safeties or extra linebackers where they give you these unique looks, and that'll help throw off Jalen Hurts because although he's played a lot better against the blitz this season, he has just 8 passing touchdowns and just 1 interception. He has taken a lot of sacks, especially against like cover zero and things like that. So if they do want to give these exotic looks to Jalen Hurts, I feel like that will kind of mitigate the run and the pass at the same time without having to necessarily stack the box or anything like that. They can kind of just send 5 rushers, but they'll be kind of rushers that you're not expecting, where it's a slot corner and a safety coming and then a defensive lineman dropping back. And I mean, Chris Jones is basically 2 or 3 pass rushers by himself. So I think that'll be a matchup to watch for, like him versus Mekhi Becton. But I think overall, I don't think the Chiefs feel like they have to sell out against the run. Their defense is very, very stout. And I think they'll be able to just kind of play their game and not have to worry about stacking the box to stop Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, as we are Fox Sports The Gambler, I want to get a little bit of a gambling question in here. A play that I highlighted a little earlier this week, already took a swing on it. Devontae Smith, 100-plus receiving yards. You get him at plus 650 there. 3 career games against the Chiefs, 99 yards, 100 yards, and 122 yards, averaging 107 yards per game. I saw a graphic this week. Players against the Chiefs that have played a minimum of 3 games in their career, Devontae Smith is averaging the most out of any player in NFL history against the Kansas City Chiefs. Thoughts on Devontae Smith potentially having a big game? I know a lot of people have highlighted A.J. Brown. Dallas Goedert has had a great playoffs. Devontae's been held under wraps a little bit. I feel like he can be kind of the forgotten man sometimes, obviously, when you have Saquon, when you have AJ. Do you think it's in the cards for Devontae to be that guy that the Chiefs basically say, all right, we're going to let Devontae Smith beat us. We're not going to let AJ. We're not going to let Saquon Barkley. Could you see another big performance in the Super Bowl from Devontae Smith?
Absolutely. And it's actually something that I've kind of talked about a little bit too, because it does seem like A.J. Brown and even Dallas Goedert, with the way he's been playing in the playoffs, that they're kind of taking the headlines away from Devontae Smith, where people are kind of forgetting just how good he is and just how good he's been throughout his career against the Chiefs specifically. And it kind of goes back to that point where I said Spags likes to blitz his slot corner quite a bit, or even if he brings a safety down there. And that's going to primarily be where Devontae Smith is. He lines up in the slot quite a bit. And if Kellen Moore's ready with those blitz beaters where he kind of has Devontae Smith on the slant or those drag routes across the middle, he could be running free with a lot of room to get yards after the catch. So I think that's kind of a good bet to lean on there. I would agree with you there.
Yeah, I like that take, and a little bit of a long shot there. So good eyes, Ryan, there. Now, back to kind of the game as a whole, I did want to talk about Nick Sirianni here. So there's been a lot of conversation about Nick Sirianni, the fire Sirianni, the sick of him. What does he even do? All those type of questions. What's your feel for really what he brings to this team? And to kind of preface a little bit from my standpoint, I think it's important that guys ride for a coach the way that they seem to for Nick Sirianni, and more so than I think is really generally seen across the NFL. So now that you do have kind of a closer feel, a finger on the pulse compared to some of us that, have not been in the press box and seen this team on such a close scale, What's kind of your view for what he brings this Eagles team, and why is he the right coach for this team?
I just think what he's done throughout this season, especially, I mean, you go back to the situation with Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown that Brandon Graham kind of revealed, and just the way that he handled that. He went on the radio right away and basically the day after and kind of poured water on the fire. Then he followed it up. You saw the messaging from the players was very consistent. They all carried that same message where they were going to be together, and he had the hoodie made up with the slogan. And you could see how this team rallies around him. And over again, it feels like he's not afraid to kind of fall on the sword when things go wrong. He's never going to throw another guy under the bus. He almost to a fault where he kind of takes blame for things. And that's why I think he gets a lot of the criticism that he does, where people say, like, it's like whenever a bad play call is called, it's like, oh, that was Sirianni. And then meanwhile, he had nothing to do with it. So it's just like, but then also, like, I tweeted out the video and it kind of went viral, but Jeff Stoutland admitted last night at the media night that Sirianni was the one responsible for moving Mekhi Becton to guard, but you would never hear him say that. Like, he would never take credit for it. And then he was asked today about it, and he was like, oh, it was more of a collaborative process. You know, like, he's never going to be like, yeah, that was me. And I think the players, like, they love that. And we saw AJ Brown kind of praise him multiple times where he's kind of like, we love that he goes to bat for us, and he doesn't really, I guess, put us in the spotlight and say, like, oh, it's this player's fault or whatever. Like, even when they won the NFC Championship game, he was like, how about our quarterback? Like, right away, he always wants to deflect. And I know he gets, like, the blame and then the bad rap for being, like, that rah-rah coach, and he's, like, celebrating into the camera and talking crap to the fans. Like, that rubs people wrong a lot. I know my own brother hates Nick Sirianni and despises him, although he's a Giants fan, but he just hates how, I guess, braggadocious he is, or whatever phrase you want to use. But he said it today. He's like, that's how I've been for 43 years. I'm not going to change, because then people are going to know I'm a fraud. And I can respect that as an Italian myself that kind of wears my emotions on my sleeve. I feel like that's a good thing. I don't want my coach being fake, and especially in the locker room, because players will see right through that. And it seems like this team has kind of rallied around that. It feels like Dan Campbell is a CEO coach, and he gets a bunch of praise for how aggressive he is and his personality. Yet Nick Sirianni does the same thing, and he's kind of blamed for all the wrong things. So it's kind of weird how that dynamic goes. But I think Sirianni is perfect for this team, and he's perfect for the city of Philadelphia.
And the Eagles have won more too with Nick Sirianni.
Not even close. Yes.
Yeah. So I agree as well. I think he gets a bad rap. Sure, there's certain situations where it's like, all right, dude, like, pipe down a little bit. But I do respect I'm going to do what got me here. And hell, he's the winningest coach in NFL history through 4 seasons, winning percentage wise. And he has a chance to go and win a Super Bowl in his second appearance. Andy Reid only ever made one during his time in Philadelphia, and he's praised as the greatest coach since sliced bread. So for Nick Sirianni to be here, be back in this situation, he could have messed this up time and time again, but they're here, and I think they're ready to do it and take down the Chiefs. And I'm feeling a little bit more confident than I was when I came into the studio this afternoon.
Yeah, I love that, especially because I was a little worried. It felt like there was pure confidence from the entire city, all Eagles fans. Like, after that last win and propelling into this, I was nervous that kind of like the vibes or the confidence level would start to sink as we get closer. It does not feel like this has happened as a whole. And I feel that way within the team too, that all these guys feel locked in, hyper-focused. Guys like Jalen Hurts certainly set the tone for that. So it's been very cool to see kind of the personality and focused mindset for this team as a whole. With the Jalen conversation, do you think there has ever been anything to the Sirianni and Jalen rift, or has this all been something that was kind of more read into than was the actuality?
I mean, the only time I think there might have been some serious stuff going on is with the whole firing Brian Johnson. Like, maybe that kind of rubbed him the wrong way, because it was a guy that he had a relationship dating back to, like, his childhood, it seemed like. So maybe that bothered him a little bit, but I also think it was completely overblown. But I also love how Jalen Hurts is even kind of leaning into it now, when he made, like, the straight jacket comment, and right away but he did it in, like, a stone face, and then said, like, he didn't want to comment on it again. I just love that he has that, like, that stone face in those situations, because you don't usually see that from Jalen Hurts, where he's throwing out jokes. So people took it as something serious, but meanwhile he was just making a joke, and he admitted that days later. So I think they really do work well together. I think during the bye week, they said they had, like, a great meeting that kind of helped, I guess, repair any issues that they might have had after those first 4 weeks. And whatever happened during then, I know there was a report that there was some sort of incident that happened at the practice. Whatever happened during that bye week, they need to bottle that up and just carry it into every future bye week, because it really seems like it helped kind of turn the whole team around. They've rallied around everybody, whether it's Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts. They're just in a really good spot moving forward.
100%. And Anthony, I thank you so much for hopping on here. Our last question before we get you out of here. Once again, thank you for taking the time. I'm going to keep this a little bit broad for you. I'm not going to pin you down for a score prediction or anything like that, but give me a little window into how your prediction for this game, whether it's game script, who has a big game, what's the ultimate result. Give me what you're thinking heading into this one.
So it's interesting because it feels like I almost feel like you were mentioning, where I thought my confidence level was going to go a little bit lower as the week progressed, and you hear all this talk about yeah, the Chiefs aren't playing that well, but they just managed to win. They managed to just do it. They're going for a three-peat. It seems like everybody's kind of starting to doubt the Chiefs a little bit, but then they're reminded no, this team just wins. That's all they do. But then I look at it and I'm just take a step back, and I'm dating back to even November, and I was just talking about this team. I'm just this defense. That's what makes me feel so confident in this team overall, and it still stands to this day. I just think they have a much better talented roster. They have much better coaches, and I truly think. I know Mark, before I joined the show, he was saying that people that say they're going to win by 2 possessions or that it's going to be a blowout are crazy, and what he put out a message there. But I truly think this might be an Eagles victory by 2 possessions. I'm not sure exactly how much or my exact score prediction. That'll probably be a little bit later in the week, but I am confident saying that the Eagles are going to win this game.
I love it. I love it. Any final thoughts from you, Ryan, before we hit our last break here and get Anthony out of here?
No, thanks for coming on. Definitely good perspective, I think, on kind of the inner workings of this matchup. Last thing I would say, I guess, if the Eagles were to lose this game, in what fashion would it be? Would it be because of turnovers? Would it be just because Patrick Mahomes goes nuclear? Is there a silver lining kind of sitting in the back of your head right now? If X happens, the Eagles will lose this game on Sunday night.
As I mentioned before, I think it's just going to come down to them kind of shooting themselves in the foot, whether it's drop passes like Buffalo had or turnovers. I mean, you don't want to see what happened in those first 4 weeks where they were turning the ball over at a high level. They just seemed all out of sorts. I feel like, but it seems like the way that they've been trending, even the one game they lost to Washington, that came down to a drop pass, and the game in Atlanta they dropped. There was really just one game where they outright lost this season, and that was to the Buccaneers. Other than that, they've kind of just beat themselves. So I feel like it would kind of be that situation again, because I don't think this Chiefs team is explosive enough to kind of just blow out the Eagles and make it a one-sided affair. I think if they lose, it'll be close, and it'll come down to turnovers and them kind of doing it to themselves. But also one thing I didn't really mention before, I know we talked about Devontae Smith, but I think this could be a big Dallas Goedert game as well. I think he's been on a roll, and he didn't play last season, even though they beat the Chiefs. And I think the way he's been playing and what the Chiefs might throw at them, I think Dallas Goedert could be in for a big game too.
Love that. And man, you feel his impact in the blocking game when he's out there too. I keep trying to harp on that as well. But Anthony, thank you so much for taking the time, hopping up on with us. That is at DiBona NFL on Twitter, the lead writer for Philly Sports Network there. Anything else you got cooking up that on your plate that you want to promote real quick?
I'll just have my storylines to watch for the game. I'll have an article on kind of Jalen Carter's arrival, how he's kind of turned from the baby rhino to full-blown adult rhino, the way he's been playing this season. So I'll have a couple stories working, and my final score prediction for the Super Bowl as well.
Awesome. Well, make sure to tap into that. Once again, that's at DiBona NFL on Twitter or X there. Check out his work over at Philly Sports Network. Some awesome people over there. Anthony, thanks so much once again. We're going to take a quick break over here. We'll be back for about the final 20 minutes, maybe get into a little bit of more NBA rumors, talk whatever. Sounds like some Kevin Durant buzz. So make sure you stay tuned for that on the other side and wrap up with some final Super Bowl predictions from me and Ryan. Keep it locked. We'll be right back on the other side. Peace.
Let's go, Birds! iHeartRadio Earth is here with a new way to enjoy our beautiful planet. Reduce your impact on the environment this fall by packing a waste-free lunch for school or work. Avoid foods with excessive packaging. Use reusable cutlery, napkins, cups, bags, and containers, and recycle or compost any waste when possible. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living, or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Fox Sports Radio, The Gambler. Now, total traffic for Philadelphia.
Roving crews again on the Schuylkill westbound University Divine Expressway. The right lane is blocked. Divine Expressway eastbound, so Schuylkill to Broad. Watch crash in Lower Providence, Ridge Pike at Level Road. Traffic's being directed around the scene. All right, to tell total traffic.
This report is sponsored by Rapid Radios.
Rapid Radios are instant push-to-talk walkie-talkies, offering national LTE coverage and no subscription ever. Perfect for instant contact with an aging parent. For a limited time, go to rapidradios.com and you'll get an extra 60% off, free UPS shipping, and add code RADIO for an extra 5% off.
See DallasStillSucks.com
for details. Gary Barbera Jeeps are super cheap during Super Cheap Jeeps Week. Hello, right, Superbirds Coach Nick? Boy, I guess. Jeeps cheap. Gary Barbera is making the Big Easy Big Game playoff payoff. Jeep Grand Cherokees. Yo, 16,666. And that's why Super Coach Nick picks Barbera.
Coach Sirianni, is Barbera the best?
Boy, I guess. Or drive a super discounted Barbera Ram like our man Brandon Graham.
Boy, I guess.
Barbera's got Big Easy credit.
Philadelphia's credit connection.
And super cheap Jeep Grand Cherokees.
A crazy 16,666.
Tell him, Superbirds Coach Nick.
Barbera the best?
Boy, I guess.
Jeep Grand Cherokee 16666. Well qualified class.
Hello, yeah.
Dallas still sucks.com.
Barbera! Gary Barbera's super goal to stay in control of the most Jeeps sold.
16,666.
Boom shakalaka.
Jeeps cheap.
Super cheap.
Is Barbera the best?
Hang on, you tell him, Brandon Graham.
Boy, I guess.
Go Birds! I know, yeah. Dallas still sucks.com.
Did you know you can get your prescriptions for less at your local pharmacy? You can with GoodRx. It's the free app that can save you money on your medications. Just search for your prescription, choose the pharmacy and the price that works best for you, and then show your GoodRx coupon to your pharmacist at the drop-off counter. GoodRx works at over 70,000 pharmacies, including Walmart, Rite Aid, and Walgreens, and it works whether you have insurance or not. It's easy to save. Next time you drop off your prescription, check GoodRx. To start saving today, go to GoodRx.com. GoodRx is not insurance.
Hey, man, you all right? Need me to call 911? No, call Top Dog Law. Get top dollar for your accident at topdoglaw.com. Once again, that's topdoglaw.com.
Grease the polls because Bourbon Street has officially turned midnight green. All things Big Game 59 right here on The Gambler.
And we are back for the final half-hour stretch right here, me and Ryan Coyle, closing things out until 8 o'clock. Before we head things over to get a peek behind enemy lines, our very own Roy Burton meeting with getting the ins and outs of this Chiefs team from a reporter with a perspective from over there in Kansas City. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We'll be back live at 9 o'clock as Sean Brace and Mark Henry Jr. hop in the sticks. We got you covered until the late night hours of the night tonight. Obviously, all over things right here for the entire Super Bowl week right here on Fox Sports The Gambler. And of course, the NBA world continues to churn as well. So plenty of news going down, Ryan. I do want to note, it does seem like Kevin Durant might be on the move. He has been downgraded to out for this game. He has deleted all the pictures of him in a Phoenix Suns uniform off the Instagram. I don't know. What's going through your mind on that one?
Well, anytime someone deleted pictures of me off their Instagram, I was on the move as well. So, yeah, that would be fascinating. For such a good player, though, like, I feel like in this era, like our era of NBA compared to like the 80s and the 90s and whatnot, so many more good players have played like in multiple uniforms. Like a player like Kevin Durant should be a guy that won 2 teams max. Now this would be what? If he gets moved again, his 5th team during his NBA career? Nets,
Oklahoma State, Nets, Suns, Warriors. This would be the number 5.
Yeah. So, I mean, just pretty insane there. But obviously with the Luka trade, this will be another one that kind of shakes up the league. Any chance you think that he's coming to Broad Street area and playing for Philadelphia?
I would say extremely unlikely, but I mean, if you had told me that Luka Doncic was getting traded, I would have said you're out of your mind. So I've kind of given up having a full belief there. I do think that the Sixers will at least be involved in another deal before possibly the end of the night, certainly by the morning, particularly with all these guys waiting out there. But we will stay tuned for whatever that news will be. To shift it back to the Super Bowl here, we got some prop bets to talk about. So we're going to start off with, I want to ask Ryan for his favorite prop bets of this particular matchup, and then we're going to build our own little touchdown parlay right here. So Ryan, first, the floor is yours. Give me your top, if you want to go top 3, if you got more than that, but what are your favorite prop bets for the Super Bowl?
All right, we'll start with the Eagles. I wore my LaShawn McCoy jersey.
Love it.
Growing up, he was my favorite Eagle, maybe my favorite athlete of all time. He was just the guy I remember growing up. I think the running back that we have now, when it's all said and done and he's done it in his Eagles career, might be my favorite Eagle of all time. I think he makes a huge play once again in this Super Bowl. I'm going with Saquon, longest rush over 25.5 at DraftKings. That's -110. Going over that number in 10 of 19 games this year would be 11. If he didn't slide against the Packers, he would have scored a 50, 60-yard touchdown on that one. But he's just been a game breaker in the playoffs. Whenever the Eagles have needed a play, he seems to have made it. I feel like if the Eagles win, they're going to need one of those trademark runs from Saquon. I touched on it at the beginning, but Chiefs are the number 1 tackling team in the league. Can Saquon make a guy miss? Can Saquon break a tackle and break one of those big runs? Certainly a key to the game for me. So I like him over 25.5. Hate to do this in this spot, but I do think Travis Kelce is going to have a day. Over 6.5 at plus 123. Just death taxes Travis Kelce delivering in the big games, averaging 7.5 catches per game over the last 3 playoff runs. I think the Eagles are strong on the outside, obviously, with Quinion, with Slay. Cooper DeJean obviously moves around the field a little. I'm interested to see the area of attack for this Eagles team in terms of guarding him. But as we know, the Chiefs are going to dial up stuff, and Travis Kelce is going to get looked to, especially if the Eagles get out early and the Chiefs have to throw from behind. Patrick Mahomes trusts him. So over 6.5 catches for Travis Kelce there. Already gave out kind of my long shot one of Devontae Smith, 100 yards at plus 650. I like that.
I do as well.
Here's a special teams one, and it could be a play that for both teams. So I gave you an Eagle. I gave you a Chief. This one, either team could hit. The longest field goal, over 47.5 at minus 105. I think one of these kickers is going to knock a long one, whether it's Jake Elliott, Harrison Butker. I think one of these kickers' number is going to get called late in the game, and they're going to have to step up and make a long kick, whether it's to put their team ahead, keep their team in the game, get some key points on the board. I think one of these guys are going to hit it. At Dome as well, I think we've seen time and time again that these two guys have been able to succeed in the playoffs. Harrison Butker, the past 2 playoffs, 22 of 22 from on field or on extra points, excuse me, 7 of 7, I think, on field goals. Jake Elliott, career in Dome. I tweeted this out today for any Jake Elliott Warriors. 52 of 54 on extra points in the Dome in his career, 27 of 30 on field goals. So I think a little bit more comfortable in there. So look for either one of those guys to hit a 48-plus yarder.
I like that. I will say my level of confidence for Jake Elliott, I think lower than the perception here.
I'm not feeling great.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling great, but I do think kicking in the Dome is certainly better than outside because you don't have to worry about you can just worry about straight up kicking it. You don't have to worry about the wind playing an element and a factor.
I think that's fair. My whole thing, though, is I don't think the wind is a factor. I think it is between his 2 ears what is a factor and what is the issue here. I don't know what he needs to do to ultimately clear that. If it's, whatever, go take a yoga class or do whatever retreat or something like that, or if it's just kicking a million field goals or whatever he needs to do. But Jake Elliott just cannot come up small in this moment. And what do we know about the sports gods, man, is there will be a chance that it is a crucial kick for Jake Elliott to hit, whether it is tying the game on an extra point or a field goal that they absolutely need. I can almost guarantee that one of those situations will play itself out. But do like where your head's at with those props. A couple more I'll throw in the mix before we build out our little touchdown parlay here. I like A.J. Brown to lead the game in receiving yards at plus 180 odds there. Shout out to DraftKings Sportsbook. I think we get at least one deep bomb to A.J. Brown that Jalen Hurts gives him a couple chances to go up and get. And for all the critiques of Jalen Hurts, the arm strength, the over the middle, he throws a beautiful deep ball, man. And he clearly trusts A.J. Brown to go up and get it whenever he sees single coverage. The Chiefs play a lot of man, and that's kind of my expectation is that those opportunities will pop up. A.J. had a long touchdown in that last Super Bowl. Would not shock me if we see something similar in this. I mentioned Hurts for MVP quite a bit. Plus 350 is insanity to me. That should be a slam dunk, be all over that. I can't believe Saquon is a higher favorite than his. And I get him. Saquon's awesome. There's no doubt about it. But to me, there has to be somebody to actively take the award away from the quarterback. If this is all things equal, Jalen Hurts will be crowned MVP, I feel. So the plus 350 to that, I'm all over. I like the Devontae Smith over 51.5 yards. That's just minus 110 there. So not quite as drastic as you, Beef, but I might hop on the wave as well. And then, of course, the Hurts anytime touchdown there. Also, we'll dabble a little bit on the Hurts over 250 and 8.5 rush and pass yards. That's minus 106. If you want to go all the way to 300, you can get that at plus 205. And my long shot of the day, Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley to combine for 4 touchdowns. Plus 550 there. Those are the 2 guys that when they get in the money zone, they're going to be the guys getting the rock. So love that there. Let's build out this touchdown parlay to close out and shop here. So what's your mindset here? We each pick 2.
I say we take one from each team.
Okay.
So I take a Chief and Eagle. You take a Chief and Eagle. 4 legs. I think that realistic, right?
Yeah.
And we'll still get some pretty juiced up odds.
I like it. We'll snake draft this bad boy too.
Right.
So I'll let you. Do you want to? Your idea. I'll let you take the first overall pick.
All right. Well, I'll go with the Mark Henry best bet in sports. I'll go Jalen Hurts minus 110 for my first leg and my Eagle.
Love it. I'm gonna go the guy right above him, Saquon Barkley, minus 195. I get we're not crushing on value, but when you do combine those on shout to DraftKings Sportsbook, already up to plus 216 here. So we're cooking a little bit with gas. We got our 2 Eagles. Now we got to pick our 2 Chiefs. Where are you going in the second round?
All right, let's do a little bit more of a creative angle here. The Chiefs, as we were talking about with Anthony, the past Super Bowl against the Eagles, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney scored. Like, they seem to have a guy step up. I saw a tweet today as well. In their 3 Super Bowls, they've had a player that scored a touchdown that pregame was at least plus 500 or more. So Chiefs will get some wild cards, not necessarily saying throwing that into your parlay, but a guy that's had a really strong playoffs, Xavier Worthy, averaging 7 touches a game. He's obviously gets the ball in the running game, the passing game, and his role has really grown throughout the offense. I think outside of Travis Kelce, he's kind of the wide receiver one there. I'm a little bit scared of him. I have a prop bet for him as well, 100 plus rush receiving yards at plus 300. I think if a Chiefs weapon outside of Travis Kelce is going to have a day, it's going to be Xavier Worthy. So let me throw him in there for my Chief.
So Xavier Worthy, his anytime touchdown odds sitting at plus 155 individually. When you stack this with our 3, we're up to plus 675. It's interesting. I kind of had my 2 choices for the Chiefs. I was going to go down to Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes as my 2 anytime. I'm going to rock in. I think it's too destined in the stars for Travis Kelce not to find the end zone here. That would be my choice from the Chiefs. He is plus 140 overall. When you combine those 4, we're looking at plus 2,000 odds over on DraftKings Sportsbook. So not, the most likelihood based on the odds here, but I like that. I like where our head's at here. I do think Barkley and Hurts are both individually almost locks to get in there, both in the minus, the only 2 players in the minus odds for this game. So you're liking how this parlay is shaping up?
Yeah, I think for sure. You said it best with in terms of getting it into, once you get into the red zone, you got to look at Saquon and Jalen. But also with Saquon, he's got the ability he could have the ball in the opposite 20 and take it to the house. It also depends if you agree with what Colin Cowherd said just a couple of weeks ago, that the Eagles might not even get the ball into the red zone this game if this parlay is going to have a chance. One quick point I want to make, though, on your MVP talk with Jalen Hurts at plus 350.
Sure.
I think something to look for, and I'm not 100% sure how this works, but I would assume the same people that have – is it a fan vote for MVP for the Super Bowl?
I don't think so. I think there's that's good. I'll fact check that. We'll see.
Because if it's the same people that vote for MVP for the regular season as it is the Super Bowl, I think you have to pay close attention to those odds. Like, how many votes does Saquon get? Was he actually ever in consideration? Because that goes to show you how people believe that the team is really ran by and who is by. So maybe that's why Saquon is a little bit juiced up right now. But this is, 9 times out of 10 a quarterback award. I think if the Eagles win, Jalen Hurts is certainly going to win it. But I would say take a close look at those odds if that is the conversation with the votes, because it could just mean that the voters really believe in Saquon Barkley, that he's the most valuable player on that team.
So the official formula here is it is 80% of the total vote done via media, 20% via fans. So there are 16 members of the NFL media to vote on MVP. That's a lot of weight in each of those votes with just 16 there. So it is an interesting factor to keep in mind. There's certainly not. You got something else on that?
We have. I think this is pretty big news, at least. The Eagles are now a half-point favorite.
Wow.
The Chiefs are still minus 115 on the money line, but the Eagles are at minus a half on DraftKings Sportsbook at minus 105 on the money line. That's been at plus money all week. So it's starting to shift, it looks like. Maybe by the time we wake up tomorrow, the Eagles are a point or point and a half favorite.
Wow.
I'm still a little bit unsure how they're a favorite on the spread, but still an underdog on the money line. There was a couple of college basketball games I saw last week as well with that.
Weird.
But that's what it's saying on DraftKings Sportsbook right now.
Interesting. Well, look at that. I guess everyone is believing, as we got a nice picture of Deshaun Jackson and LaShawn McCoy sitting courtside at the Sixers game. So these spirits are high for this Eagles team. And it does feel like nationally. I did bring this up with Mark, and we kind of talked about it a little bit. Everyone hates both these teams. With that being said here, what would you put the percentage of how many people in the just general public are rooting for the Eagles? Because obviously there is the three-peat factor with the Kansas City Chiefs. There's the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce factor that's got to be considered as well. But people just hate Philadelphia, man. So if you're just taking a survey of the country, neutral perspective, what percentage do you think are rooting for the Eagles in this game?
I'd probably say I'd go 70-30
Okay.
in favor of the Chiefs.
In favor of the Chiefs.
In the favor of the Chiefs.
Really?
Yeah.
You think that the more people want the Chiefs to win this game than the Eagles?
I just because I think Philadelphia is
Sure.
probably the most hated fan base across the country. You never really hear anybody have anything good to say, unless you're from here yourself about us. But that's kind of the angle I'm looking at. And also the Taylor Swift factor is a big thing as well.
Yeah.
I think I saw one of the guys from Crossing Broad tweeted like there was a cake at the Acme in Haverford or something that said "Go Taylor's boyfriend" or something like that. Like, come on, you're Delco, you're a Philadelphia suburb. You can't be promoting the Chiefs. So it even goes to show you that people that don't even care about football, the only thing that they'll probably say is, let's root for Taylor Swift's boyfriend. So I think America is probably rooting for the Chiefs. I also think there's sports fans out there that just enjoy history and enjoy watching greatness, and you have the chance for the first ever three-peat in NFL history. It's a pretty special situation the Chiefs are in, and the Eagles have the chance to screw it up in the best way possible.
Interesting. My prediction would be 60-40 in favor of the Eagles.
Wow.
That I think, sure, I'm with you. There's certainly going to be people out there who outright hate Philadelphia and outright hate the Eagles, but I think more people outright hate Patrick Mahomes, man. Like some of my friends who are like Chargers and Broncos fans, they outright despise Patrick Mahomes. And I think there's a lot more of that than we kind of get the pulse of here. Obviously, we only see him in the Super Bowl, really, is when those matchups happen there. So I think that there's a stronger hatred for Patrick Mahomes that may weigh out. While like Philadelphia as a whole certainly has the factors that people dislike, I really don't think there's many guys on this Eagles team that people have that sort of, passionate hatred towards.
Yeah, I agree. There's not that many on the roster wise, but still it just comes back to I was listening to Fox Bet's podcast today. It was with the Bear, and they had a guy from Vegas on with them, and he said they were like, "Oh, like who is Vegas rooting for?" And he's like, "I'm not rooting for anyone. Like I just want it to be a lower scoring, not really entertaining game that's good for the book. But I'm certainly not rooting for Philadelphia. I don't want to see them enjoy anything. I don't want to see their fans enjoy anything. And I feel like, that's probably a more likely than not sentiment across the entire country.
Yeah, I think that there's certainly a chance of that as well. But I do think we did a nice job breaking this game down from a bunch of different angles. Shout out to Mark Henry Jr. and Anthony DiBona for popping it on. Before we get fully off, Ryan, final score predictions. Let's hit me with it.
It's already bet in the DraftKings Sportsbook.
Exact score?
The exact 31-27. Eagles win, Eagles cover, the over hits. I think it's a game, too, that we've talked about it, but I do think the Eagles have the ability to get up. But I think it's a situation where not that they take their foot off the gas, but the Chiefs are just relentless and come back. It's probably like a 31-20 game late, and the Chiefs get a touchdown to make it a little bit closer than it indicates. But I truly believe top to bottom, this is a better roster, and I think they're going to ruin history. Plain and simple, slay the dragon. And we'll see you on Broad Street next Thursday. Sounds like the rumors potential snowstorm on Wednesday. But looking forward to getting back there. That was one of the best days of my life, and manifesting that we'll be back there next week.
Absolutely. And as far as my score prediction, I do think the Eagles absolutely win this game. I think it might end up in a little bit more convincing fashion. I'm joining this train a little bit. I'll go 31-23 as my score prediction. So pretty much in the same ballpark as you, but I kind of see that as a late surge by the Chiefs. I think the Eagles grab control of this game, try and keep it on the floor, running out the clock, and make sure that they're playing this game by their way. Eagles football is how this game is concluded there. So we will see what happens. We will, on the other side of this break, get the opposite perspective from a Chiefs reporter and a guy for a feel for that. I am very curious to listen in that and get that kind of feeling. I have not heard a lot of what is the perspective of a Chiefs fan, because, I mean, I guess they're kind of numb to winning at this point. But I do think when you look down these rosters, there are fair points to be concerned. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Appreciate each and every one of you guys rocking with me and Ryan for these past 2 hours. Shout out to Mark Henry Jr. and Anthony DiBona for popping on, chopping it up with us, and very thankful for the Gambler for rolling out all these extra opportunities. We've been busy all week and plenty more to go. So make sure to keep it locked to the Gambler at FoxPHL, Gambler on Twitter, on all socials there. So keep it locked and listen to Roy Burton over on the other side.
Dan Patrick, 9 to noon.
Brett Brown joins us.
Colin Cowherd.